Hear ye, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the Board of Selectmen.
Good evening. Welcome to the first 250th anniversary of the Goffstown Board of Selectmen meeting since our town was chartered in 1761. We are here celebrating that night, and that's why we are in the attire that we're in. And everybody is arrived, so we will please start with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Selectman Fournier, would you please lead us?
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. This is the June 20th, 2011 meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. First order of business is acceptance or correction of public and non-public minutes, 6/13/11.
Motion to accept the minutes with corrections.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, my corrections are on page 2. Second paragraph. In the third line, it should read, Pierce Company is happy with the 90% deal. So just insert the word company, not so that readers of the minutes are not confused that Selectman Pierce was happy.
Is there any other corrections?
Yes. On page, towards the end, here's the tab. Page 16. Very last line. The sentence starts, in anticipation of this, we have installed. And at that point, I'd like to insert the words bicycle passageway through the, and then it continues, through the fence. Thank you.
I have a few. On that same page, 16, second paragraph, it says, Chairman Devanza stated that year ago, their talk about that. Makes absolutely no sense, and what that was is that a few years ago, there was talk about the Riverwalk, a Riverwalk. So that should be rephrased. Okay, I have a few more. On page 20, first paragraph, the last sentence, we do have another roundabout scheduled at Pleasant Street, but that one will not quite be round, more oval. That was not what I said. That one acts kind of as a roundabout. It's oval, but it will just be cleaned up. And on the bottom, the last full paragraph, second sentence, as far as capacity, it says school uses our bonding capacity. It's sewer. Sewer Commission uses the town's bonding capacity. Are there any other corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
I'm going to abstain.
You
I
do?
wasn't there for the full
Okay,
meeting.
one abstention. 401, thank you. Okay. Next item are announcements. We do have a few announcements. The first announcement is from it's to the Goffstown Police Department Chief Patrick Sullivan, and it is from the Belanger family. Chief Sullivan, I would like to bring to your attention some interaction I had with your department on June 6, 2011, at approximately 21:15 hours. I arrived at my home to find my 71-year-old mother on the floor bleeding from her arms and head. I immediately called the Goffstown Police Dispatch Center, not emergency line, as this is the number I know, and the call was answered by a female dispatcher. I told her I needed an ambulance, gave her very brief information, and abruptly hung up on her. I first would like for you to relay to her my apology for being abrupt and hanging up on her, and to also thank her for quickly notifying the Goffstown Fire and EMS, as well as your patrol officer, of my needs. Both your officer and the EMS personnel arrived within minutes and immediately cared for my mother. I would also like for you to extend to the patrol officer for being very helpful. He was assisting the EMTs with all of their needs, as well as getting information to the fire truck that had arrived to bring in the appropriate equipment. I apologize for not knowing their names. As Chief of Police, you should be very proud to have these employees working for you, and could you please extend from my family the gratefulness for the professional services they did provide, the Belanger family. We have one other one. We have the notice of civil forfeiture. This is Office of the Town Clerk. It's from the Goffstown Police Department. These are for dogs. These are dog licenses, final notices that will be coming up. This will be discussed later on this evening. But just so that everybody is aware, there are some dog licenses that have not been renewed, and they will be have to be followed up by statute. There is a traffic alert on Henry Bridge Road in Goffstown. It's the Goffstown Department of Public Works announces the closure of Henry Bridge Road for 2 days during the week of June 27th for pavement and curbing installation between Kidder Court and Harry Brook Bridge. Henry Bridge Road will be open to all residential traffic, but will be closed to through traffic periodically as needed to accomplish this work. Please seek an alternate route such as Elm Street to Main Street to South Mass Street. Delays may be encountered in the work zone as only one lane of alternating traffic flow can be accommodated when the road is open. Work is currently scheduled, weather permitting, for Tuesday, June 28th and Wednesday, June 29th, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. This notice, project updates, the construction schedule, and plans are posted on the town's website, www.goffstown.com. Please contact Mike Hillhouse at 497-3617 with any questions. Thank you for your patience during this construction season.
Resident.
And I've just been handed a congratulations card. Dear Goffstown, for all that makes you our beloved hometown, our town, happy 250th birthday. Love and best wishes, sincerely yours. I can't. Sorry.
Phil's mom. Misha Pakalama. Pakalaman.
Resident since 1998. It's nice to say congratulations, and nicer too by far when it's meant for people as great as you and as special as you are. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
That was slipped under the town clerk's door.
Oh, okay. That was very nice. We're very grateful for that. Are there any other public announcements? Okay. Next item will be public comment. We're running on schedule. At this time, we will take comment from any members of the public who are not scheduled to be on the agenda later this evening. Are there any members of the public here who would like to speak?
Yes, that's me.
We're gonna need your name for the record.
Absolutely, Aaron Morissette. Give you the address to 65 Eastern Barton Road. it's a couple things. Has anybody gotten out to review that section of road between Straw Road and Black Brook?
Yes.
Okay. I don't expect an answer of your findings in there, but I would hope that you found it not very pleasant ride. Not very pleasant ride.
It needs attention.
Okay, so with that in mind, the attention, speaking of attention, it also came to my attention that you are possibly going to be looking at redoing Spring Street.
There are several streets on the road plan this year, yes. Spring
Okay.
Street.
So what I would like the town to consider would be holding off on the funds that would go into Spring Street to contribute towards the restoration of those bad sections on Easton Barton Road. I don't think it would be very financial, be smart, responsible to resurface a small stretch of road that's probably 300 feet or less, probably, I don't know what the residency count is there, but I'm assuming it's under 20 there, when those funds and those materials could be used to redo a major route.
Go ahead if you.
I was
would
just
like
going to say
address
that
it.
that particular project happens to be a combined project where it was planned for water main replacement.
Right.
So at the same time with the road already being
Oh, it's- you can do the
torn
water at
up,
the same time.
It's a matter of economy of scale, having
Right.
things done at the same time
Right, no.
versus tearing them up. So that's why that road is being
Okay.
scheduled.
May I address the comment too? Yes. The area of Easton Barton you're interested in
Yep.
is on the road plan as a contingency later this fall.
Okay,
So contingency in that should funds be left over from our other projects, that one is scheduled to be done. So, and
if funds are
which
left
means,
over.
which means, that- yes, which means it is very high on our priorities. And if it doesn't make it this year, it's more than likely will next year. But
Well,
but
I'm
that,
not, I'm not too sure that the more than likely is an adequate answer for that. For the amount of traffic that's there, you're taking secondary roads, some of which are dead ends. I know it ties into the water or the slash sewer project, but you're kind of giving the impression that if, you know, it shouldn't be a matter of if, it should be something that is scheduled, it's something that should be in the books, and something that should be planned for, not just going in there and saying, when we dig into our pocket, if this changed there, we're gonna throw it that way. You're giving the impression that it's not really a priority, it's not really something that is of concern. It just, through the years, gets put to the back burner, back burner, back burner. And eventually, the town's gonna look at a major overhaul price, because they're gonna be forced to do the whole entire section of road, instead of just doing a small section here and there, not as simple as, you know, patching it or putting down a skim coat. It's a matter of taking care of the major things, because when those frost seas start coming, it's getting worse.
and we're aware of the catch basins
Right.
need attention
Right,
too.
those are the other issues there too as well. So my fear is that it's just gonna get pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. I don't feel that I'll hear a commitment from the town on that, and that's what kind of concerns me, is the lack of commitment to address the issue. So, the other thing too is that I try to follow up on the website, and I don't see anything in there in regards to, like Spring Street, it's fine, but I didn't see in there that it was in relation to waterworks as well. So, a little bit more information as far as what the town is spending the money on. The real issue is that you need to do the water, and the road is just gonna be a byproduct benefit, you know, of doing the waterworks stuff, so I would good have just a little bit more information on that.
Yes, unfortunately, it was a more complicated project with another, the water precincts involved, plus storm water
Mm-hmm.
installation, curbings, sidewalks.
Right.
It took considerably more planning, and.
Well, like everything else, right? Okay, well, as long as we can
but we-
kinda keep the heat on you as far
The
as,
Department of Public Works is very much aware that the area of your street needs attention,
Yeah.
and this board is too.
so if you look at what you're saying for the end of the year, if there's anything left in, in the coffers, so to speak, to repair that, are you looking at repairs? Or are you, I mean, like patching, so to speak? Or are you looking at, reclaiming the whole thing?
I
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I mean, public comment should be limited to try to 3 minutes, and not to, if, I don't have any problem talking about this, but we've got a lot on our agenda.
Well, I understand that. I respect that, and I apologize.
I can get back with you to the extent of the repairs.
Okay, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I'll do that this week.
Excuse me, I was hoping we would also be able to discuss this under an agenda item as well, because I think some of the points that were raised are valid, and I think we might want to invite our Public Works Director so we can kind of look at the matrix and see how we can, you know, accommodate all the needs if it's possible.
Okay. All right, we'll do that.
For the 27th?
Right.
Well, we
That's
might,
the chairman's.
we'll see how much time we have later, and maybe we can discuss this on the whole business, since this was brought up once
All right.
before.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to make a comment?
No. Thank you very much.
Okay. Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay. The next item will be police agenda item. We're running a few minutes early, and it's with Police Chief Patrick Sullivan regarding oath of office and a reception for Sergeant Matthew Hosney and Police Chaplain Deborah Grove. I don't know if you want to start now, or you want to wait and we can move. Okay, thank you.
Do the town clerk.
Yeah, how about the town clerk? Is she here for that? Or would you like to take care of your business? Okay, is that also with Police Chief Patrick Sullivan? Okay, if you'd come forward and we'll take care of that item. I left my pen inside.
I'm sorry?
I left my pen inside. Okay. Okay. Floor is yours.
Thank you. In your packets, I have provided you a copy of this year's notice of $25 civil forfeiture and a clause that says plus a collection fee of $5 per household to the town clerk's office within 15 days of the calendar notice given. This has been dated for June 30th, and that is in an attempt to give residents an opportunity to get in here and get this paid before the civil forfeiture letters are issued. We waited until tonight. June 20th was the last date by statute to bring this to your attention. And I'm happy to say that as of this afternoon, we have only 288 dogs outstanding, and that's compared to over 500 dogs last year at the same time. So I feel that we've made progress. This year, we have put dogs online as a form of convenience for people to be able to go on and pay for their dog registration. There's been lots of questions about dogs online because there is a small vendor fee. There's 35 cents to log on and $1.50 per transaction. That's the same as the convenience fee for our motor vehicles. We have to go through a vendor to offer this convenience, and that charge goes directly to the vendor. But we have had a couple hundred people that have taken advantage of using the dogs online, so I feel that it's been very successful, and I think that people will reach out and use that in the future. I do want to thank the chief for his assistance with this project. We've made attempts to do a lot of advertising this year. We've used GTV extensively to do some advertising to let people know that it was dog registration time. The Goffstown News was nice enough to come and take a picture of one of our dog from the Goffstown Police Department and an officer, and we got coverage in the Goffstown News with that. And we've been doing our best to spread the word with people, so people have been getting in to pay. The notices are something that we've worked to improve, and you may notice a change from last year. One of the things we've done is we tried to institute a chart in here that would be a simple calculation for people to know how much that they would pay when they do receive their notification. We couldn't have done this without the assistance from the IT department. We have to go through a special program to be able to pull the information and merge it into a letter, and our office doesn't have that program because we have to interface with the vendor. So we have the ability to take and insert multiple dogs in the top of the letter, listing the dog's name, their previous tag number, and their rabies expiration date. And that lets people know that we do have good rabies on file, and for convenience reasons, they don't have to provide that to us because we already have that in our system. By providing last year's tag number, that gives folks the ability to go online and use the online to do the renewal for convenience. And once we enact the civil forfeiture, we'll be able to put that fee into the online system too, so when people go to pay, it'll boot everything up and put in the $5 household convenience charge in there. Chief, do you have anything to add?
The concern I have, I think it's a great program that we've started to work and we've really reduced the numbers. My concern is our follow-up through going door to door. We're down with retirements and everything else and the unfilling of position. I'm down 3 positions right now, and it's gonna be a burden. We've experienced a spike in burglaries in the last couple months, and I'm afraid that that will take away should we have to go door to door. My recommendation would be to send out the letters as part of the warrant and for payment that way. Our policy is still, if we encounter a dog that's unregistered, we automatically issue an unregistered dog fine. So there is action taken.
Nick, you got a question?
I just had a quick question for the town clerk. How is the rabies information updated? Is that something that comes directly from the vet, or do they
Yes.
need to bring information in?
By state law, vets are required to notice all town clerks in New Hampshire within 45 days of providing rabies.
Thank you.
Scott?
Yeah, I would agree with what the chief's comments are relative to using police resources to hand out summonses on this. This is not the time. Is there any escalation of these forfeitures? If people don't pay it by July 15th, what's another recourse other than getting served a summons? Does it double? Does it?
The statute says that they will be served a summons to appear in court, and once it goes to court, the revenue that's charged by the court, or the fine, that revenue goes to the court versus the town.
Okay. And are there any, the other question that I had was, and I spoke to you about this privately, and that was, our mechanism for doing this is, I believe, outdated to a certain degree, the initial work. We send out letters. And is there a possibility when people register their dog that we capture their email address and we start to at least do it via email, which is no cost, rather than a 44-cent stamp? And when we're talking, I don't know, how many, 1,000 dogs, and how many did we send out?
We have, to date, we have 2,453 dogs registered and 288 outstanding, so just shy of 2,800.
Right, and obviously people have multiple dogs, but I'm just saying, I think the letters, it's an old system, and I think if we can somehow capture email addresses and send out a couple, this way we can say, hey, we sent out 4 emails as well, and then we resort to letters. I think that's a more cost-effective way of doing it, if we can do it statutorily. Sometimes you can't send emails, you have to send letters by law, but if that's a possibility, then I think we should go that route as well.
Well, just one thing I wanted to bring up as a follow-up to that. Not everybody has email, but what it might do is if the emails could be captured, perhaps during registration time, and entered in, then they could get email reminders.
Right.
That might keep down the amount of notices that have to go out by stamp. So we might be able to cut some costs down that way as a possibility. I don't think that the email probably wouldn't serve as a statutorily, but at
Probably
least
not,
if it goes out as a reminder, even they could have a box on there with check a box for reminder for renewal, and put your email address in or something along that line. That might cut down on some costs.
Just a quick question. All right, so at this process, obviously, we're not gonna use police resources to go out for this fine. And in the next case, it goes to court, and honestly, I take it we won't be going out and using police resources for that part of it also, I take it.
If we go out, it would be to issue summonses after this letter
Right.
goes out.
We are going to do that second part, then bypass the first
Well,
part.
No. That is the
No.
first part.
No, that's statutorily, they have to, it's the court, and the only way you're gonna go to court if you serve the citation.
Okay, so if we don't serve the citation, there will be no court. Okay.
So we won't actively go out and seek unregistered dogs if we encounter them as part of a dog complaint
Right.
or a runaway dog or something of that sort. We will issue summonses, but we won't actively seek the unregistered dogs.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Yes, Nick?
I just have a quick question, because once these go out, we're gonna get a good, probably a majority of the people will send in their registrations. Instead of just blanket saying we're not gonna go out and seek these, couldn't we wait?
Hey.
I mean, in July, we may have half of them send their in, we may only have 100 people, and it doesn't have to be a priority, because it's not until next year that they renew them, so we could do it on a case-by-case, slowly, you know, a couple of
If I may,
here and there.
Chief, I think that maybe the more prudent way of doing this is to, if we say that we're not going to do it, then I think that might not be a good thing. People will say, I'm not gonna bother.
Absolutely, yeah.
However, perhaps what my suggestion would be is, let's see what we get from sending the letters. After that, I'm sure most of our patrol officers have routes. And perhaps the letters can be sorted by route, so that if an officer has the time while doing a normal patrol, if they wanna do one here and there, we reserve the right
That's
to
the
do
way
it.
we've done it in the
Okay,
past, that we've
good.
broken the list
When,
out.
and we can squeeze it in, and people are running that risk of getting served a summons and having to appear in court. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think the chief said that he was not gonna do it. What the chief was saying, they were gonna
It's not a
put
priority,
the letter
right.
out first, then they're basically gonna be reassessed. Hopefully they cut that number down to reduce the amount of stops that they would have to go out and knock on doors and issue citations.
At 400, though, it's a concern of the manpower.
Right, so perhaps we only have to do 50, hopefully less than that after this goes out. So what you're looking for us is authorization to send this out?
Yes, and my recall is that last year, we did have less than 30
Right.
households.
Yeah, I think it was somewhere around 28, 25 or 28.
my other question is whether or not, what does the statute say for being served? Because can a sheriff's deputy serve it, and is there a recovery cost? Because if there is a recovery cost, and the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department wants to serve these things, and they're gonna get that money back, then that's their prerogative, if they have the resources.
They've been cut pretty severely recently with budget cuts.
Okay,
I believe there's some scaling back, and I won't speak for the sheriff, but
okay.
that's the impression I've gotten. And the warrant, I believe, under the law, has to be issued by the board to the body that has the enforcement powers.
Yeah, I think, though, the chief will have that discretion when we get that final number whittled down, because he does have some different ways that he possibly could do. It's easier to handle a list of 25 than a list of 200,
Right.
400. So you're looking for authorization so we'll need a motion to authorize the town clerk and the police chief to go forward with the,
Civil forfeiture, so moved.
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Anything else?
No.
Okay, I think the chief is gonna stay here.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Chair, if I could have the town administrator keep this in a parking lot, but the issue of using emails versus letters and statutes, I think if that's something that we could talk about in the future, when we talk about bills and saving money, I mean, we have a lot of antiquated statutes that talk about things that were done 50 years ago before email, and if there are ways to streamline things, but we cannot do them because of statute. And these are the types of bills that hopefully our state reps will introduce, rather than some of the bonehead ones that they're doing recently. So, and we can truly save money, rather than, giving people guns, if they have domestic violence or
Well-
charge. I mean, that's,
Well, the only thing I understand your comment, and one thing that I will say is that there are some of the requirements for noticing and different things were tried to be addressed through email and through other forms of communication, and they've gone nowhere through the legislature, just so that, that would be something.
time to put the heat on our legislators then, because there's a lot of money. Who wants to spend $400 every time we want to send out notices on dogs? Every single town all across New Hampshire. Doesn't make sense.
That's why the town clerk and the chief came in with their request.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have a 6:30. Chief, we're running late, so you only got a couple of minutes now.
Could I request to be able to take a picture of the board before he comes back in real quick? Yes, yes.
Sure thing.
This is
You
for
want
the
us to
annual report, yes.
You want us to stand
This
up?
is for the
or-
annual
That might be
report.
beneficial.
For the annual report this year, we thought we'd
Oh, great.
be different.
If you'd get a little bit closer.
You know what, want to get these microphones out of the way, or?
Yeah, that wouldn't look very historical, would it?
Put the chairs up. Wait a minute, we usually have a couple sitting down, don't we?
Yes.
And the others?
Usually 3 are sitting down at the head table and 2 are behind.
That's it.
Hey, man,
By your side.
I gotta
Were
fix
you
my
praying?
hair.
Well, I can do the same thing you're doing, so there you go. If you want a good picture.
Actually,
fix
those
your-
microphones don't look good like that in the picture.
True. Okay, let's try this one.
Smile, Phil.
Hey, hold on, take a few more.
Take a
'cause
few
It always
more.
is a problem. Here, put your hands down
Yeah.
this time. Put your hands down.
Wow.
Oh, he's mean.
Okay, and maybe one more.
You need a flash?
Oh, Eric's that back up.
go on the website.
No.
I don't have any idea how to preview it, do you?
Because we're not dressing up in these things again.
Great.
I've never used this one before.
Website. I was going to,
Photoshopped.
before anything.
Actually, with the wigs, it does look like
a little too far
Photoshop
away.
already.
It's too far away.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Try again
Yeah,
afterwards?
you're too far away. You're
Okay.
not close. We can do it again. It's just not.
Well, then I'll come into the middle then, but
Okay.
we should go forward for now.
Be at the end of the
We'll do
meeting.
it at
Yeah,
the end,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, we gotta,
Sorry.
let's see.
All right.
Okay, learning.
All right.
Okay.
I went to a photo, but, you know.
Good evening. I'd like to present, go ahead and turn this way, please. Deborah Grow. Deborah is joining us as our new chaplain. A little background on Deborah. She's married to a retired police officer, Al. She's a mother, grandmother. She rides a motorcycle. What can I say? She's active in military veteran advocacy programs and also volunteer work. Some of her education, which I found very impressive, she has a master's degree in forensic science, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, recently completed 4 years at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary. And most importantly, and most impressive to me is, on her own as part of this, and we discussed becoming a chaplain, she paid for her own way and went out to Washington State and took a chaplaincy course out there for police and fire chaplaincy. Very impressive, and the initiative was outstanding. Part of her experience, she's an intern with the San Diego Police Department Crime Analysis Unit. She's owned a private investigation firm, court-appointed supervisor, or supervised visitation monitor, and a USO chaplain. Dr. Grow. Want to swear her in, or?
Do I want to swear her in? I want to make sure.
Not good to swear to chaplain.
That's right. We want to make sure we have the right paperwork here. We have chaplain right here. We go. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'll give you one copy of this to read from. I'm going to give you 2 copies when we're done, so you can sign them. All right? And I'm going to read through the top portion. And then we're going to get down to the bottom here, and where this blank is, hopefully you remember your name. Okay. So you put that in because that's when the oath starts. So you repeat after me, and I'm going to stop, and you're going to say your name, and then repeat after me, and we'll continue on. Okay? So it's notice of an appointment of an officer, as the chief has mentioned, and it's whereas there is a vacancy in the office of police chaplain in the town of Goffstown Police Department, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Deborah Grove, a police chaplain of the said town, and upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. Raise your right hand. I
I, Deborah Grove,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all the duties incumbent on me
all the duties incumbent on me
as police chaplain
as police chaplain
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
We'd like to introduce your friends and families, Deborah, and invite Al up if you'd like.
I'd like to invite my husband Al up. He's a retired MBTA police officer. He's on the force for about 25 years. And many people in this room are friends. My daughter is here. Neighbors, just good, dear friends, and I'm so happy and thankful that you all could make it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's get this right. Ow. Blood. Did you guys practice?
We tried to practice.
Next person, Matt, if you could come up, please. Tonight I'd like to welcome our newest sergeant, Matt Hosney. Matt's been with the department since 1999. Since that time, he's worked as a field training officer, an OC/pepper spray instructor, motorcycle officer, accident investigator, and detective. Sergeant Hosney has completed hostage negotiation school, physical fitness testing, terrorism, and first-line supervision. Sergeant Hosney has grown up in Goffstown, attended Maple Ave School, the upper elementary, for those of you who remember, the Goffstown High School. You're old. His parents are Fred and Marilyn, and his girlfriend. Jane. Sergeant Hosney's new responsibilities will include first-line supervision, evaluation of patrol officers, report review, instructing and supervising a variety of assigned tasks and programs. Officer Hosney has received attendance awards in 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, he missed 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, and 2009. He was named Officer of the Year in 2004 and received the Life Saving Award in 2003. It's my privilege to recommend Sergeant Hosney for promotion to his current rank.
Congratulations, guy.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you've done this a few times before. Okay? And there probably will be a few more down the road. Okay? Same procedure. Just when we get down to the bottom, that's the actual oath. Separate these.
Yep.
And it's notice of appointment of officer. whereas there is a vacancy in the office of Special Police Officer in the town.
Don't swear in the room.
That's it, Matt.
You were wondering about that
I told you there would be more.
Matt, you're special.
Wait a minute, I thought he had an attendance award. What do you mean vacancy?
Could be worse. We could have misplaced him. Okay? All right, notice of appointment of officer. Where there is a vacancy in the office of sergeant in the town of Goffstown Police Department, and whereas we, the subscribers, have confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, we do hereby appoint you, the said Matthew Hosney, a sergeant of the said town. And upon your taking the oath of office and having this appointment and the certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you shall have the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen and qualified in your stead. Raise your right hand. I
I, Matthew Hosney,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me
discharge and perform all duties incumbent on me
as sergeant
as sergeant
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
agreeably to the United States Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
rules and regulations of the Constitution,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and laws of the state of New Hampshire,
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown,
and the ordinances of the town of Goffstown.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I would like to introduce your family and
I would, my father Fred's here, my mother Marilyn, they're in the back. My girlfriend Jane is also here.
invite her up.
And I would like to have Jane come up front.
I feel like the unit leader guy. I was getting in the way. Matt, you want this on your Facebook?
Sorry. Excellent, thank you. Congratulations.
And we have a reception next door.
Yep. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Without hats, without wigs.
We will recess for a few moments and be reconvening at 7:14. And 7:15, we have Chief Richard O'Brien regarding job descriptions. Chief?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. For the past year or so, we're looking at things that require review on occasion in an organization. One of them is a job description or position descriptions, as we call it. And after review, the last time that they were looked at or updated was back in 2003, and found that majority of our position descriptions within the fire department need to be updated for one reason or another. So tonight, I'm looking for approval on several positions within the fire department that have updated the job descriptions. The positions are for EMS member, call firefighter, full-time firefighter, full-time lieutenant, call lieutenant, and for the fire prevention officer. And just in a nutshell, going in an overview, looking at all these, what I updated was the essential job summary or the nature of work to better reflect what they're doing now. Also, the essential duties and responsibilities to make sure that they encompass, but not exclude anything that we're constantly demanding our personnel to do on a day-to-day basis, whether ranging from performing their duties on calls or alarms to maintaining equipment for readiness. The other component we looked at strongly was the education and training component. This really needs to be looked at closely because what we had in the past didn't reflect current standards. Current standards meaning current certifications the state runs by for firefighter and for EMT. Just to give you an example, the CPR card wasn't defined. Now, say back in 2003, CPR card was one CPR card. Now there's probably 4 or 5 different CPR levels that you could attain, but there's only one CPR level that could be attained for a responder, and that's now defined. Also, the physical conditions of the job were outlined to make it clear that these positions require our employees to be to maintain sound physical conditioning because they're going to be exposed to duties and jobs that have occupational risk, typical to a firefighter or EMS. The job descriptions also went in detail, are going into detail on the ADA compliance and statements at the end that also outline the reasonable accommodations in language that's typical what ADA or the Americans with Disabilities Act recommends. So with that said, this is just the start. After we look at these and get these approved, I'll be starting the second phase, which is including the rest of the positions that are recognized right now within the fire department, including my position. And we'll be coming forward later on this year to present that.
Do you have all the job descriptions in your
And we
packet?
have call firefighter and EMS.
That's all I see, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But we had 3.
I sent them all through.
Yeah.
I have the ones that came through by email, and there were 3 of them.
3 is what I saw.
These are the only ones in the packet.
You have
Then
to-
we had
you
the
have to
3,
do- you
then
have
we
to
had
do
the
the
3
full-
old.
What I thought we were talking about.
You have to do the pull-down menu at the top to see all of them. They're all there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Email.
okay.
But they weren't all
There's quite a
pulled
few
down.
of them. So you're looking at six of them.
I apologize, Chief. Only 2 made it.
Okay.
2 new ones made it
I'll be
to the
happy to go
packet.
over any of the ones that you don't see, just to kind of, the whole point, I guess, was to standardize language within the job descriptions. For example, the position of firefighter has similar job responsibilities and duties, say, full-time to call, because their jobs are essentially the same. One just has different requirements when it comes to certifications and education. And state requirements for a full-time firefighter do mandate that you have a certain amount of state firefighter certifications. So that was included there also. We also looked at, I'm not sure what else you don't have on hand.
All they have is call firefighter and the EMT one.
Okay.
Right.
So looking at the full-time fire lieutenant positions and the call fire lieutenant positions, again, looking at the 2 positions and realizing that they essentially have the same job responsibilities. And looking at that, we standardized language under the examples of duties or essential duties, and also looking at the education and training and standardizing that in what you need for minimum qualifications in order to be eligible for those positions.
There were 12 files that were sent to the board on June 10th. That was the day the chief had sent to me. So it was, they were all in your email, but they're not all in your packets.
Right. What I sent you is the new one that we're presenting and the old one, so you can compare the 2.
Nick?
Well, I was just, could I suggest that we deal with these 2 tonight?
Yeah.
Because my assumption was, because these were in our packet, that these were the 2 that we were going to discuss tonight, and that's what I reviewed.
Yeah, that's the only 2 that I reviewed.
So the call firefighter and the EMS member.
So this one at the back is not a different one?
Those are the old ones, right, Chief? This is the format for the
Yeah,
old
this
ones.
is the old format is the
Okay.
old text version,
Oh,
and the
yeah,
new ones
okay.
should
Are
have
boxed in.
the patch
Yeah.
and
It's
the
just the
pound.
call.
Oh, okay, I wasn't
Sorry
clear
that I
on that.
didn't
So this here,
understand that.
where it says call EMS only is the old
Old
one?
That's the old one.
Okay, because I had a couple of questions on that, so they're gonna be history, so
Yes, and that's exactly why I,
It's in this format, is the old format.
this format right here, okay, I wasn't clear on that. Yeah, Nick?
A couple of questions, Chief, on the call firefighter, education, training, and certification, which is page 2. What's the current state requirement for a call firefighter?
the current state requirement is no certification right now. You can become a call firefighter in an organization. What we do is, and it's been working quite well, is when we take on somebody through the recruit process, within the first year, instead of having a member become stagnant as far as training goes, we give them the choice to either enroll into an EMT basic program, which we sponsor, or a firefighter 1 program, which we would also sponsor within the first year. So that way, it keeps them fresh in what they need to get done. And it lets that call firefighter become a useful resource on the department within a year.
So do they have to complete that within a year?
They have
or
to be
involved?
what I call attained or actively pursuing within 1 year of employment. So they have to show that they're possibly in a class within 1 year.
Forward. And then also with the CPR card, can they get that while they're on? Or do they have to come in with a CPR card?
No, they can get that after they arrive. We run classes constantly, so they would get that in-house.
And then, can you just explain the GFD entrance testing?
That's the entrance testing requirements is basically the physical ability test that we hold every spring and fall. And that's the testing process that we have to see if they're suitable for call firefighter.
Steve?
Quick question. It probably follows a little bit where Nick was going. There was the part where it says attends training sessions. I mean, is that a specific amount you're looking for? I'm not sure if that falls a curriculum or that you're looking to do.
What that basically says is you're gonna be responsible to attend training sessions when available. We also have a department procedure for, I think you're maybe aware of it, we have the call points, the call firefighter points that you can gain over time, either by responding to calls and by attending training sessions. And in order to stay active within the organization, you have to attain points through training. And it doesn't say which ones you need to attend, but you need to attend a certain number of trainings within a year.
Because you spoke about that points before, and and you look at that as being active or inactive.
Correct.
So is there a specific amount of points you're looking to attain, or, I mean,
Someone could attain
I'm
up
not
to.
saying it has to be an absolute threshold, but you're looking
They can get up to 24 points within a year, training points.
And what would you say would be what the need to be called active?
Active, probably half of that.
Okay. And if I can
Go ahead.
follow up. And when you said there is a physical, when I say, well, let me, to determine physical conditioning, you say you do that yearly. Is that for everyone in the fire department, or just?
It depends on their age. Anybody over the age of 40, we try to send them annually. The younger members will be sent every other year to our department physician for evaluation.
So it's, okay, so the physical, determining the physical conditioning is not going through a routine, but it's actually just seeing the physician.
No, we're seeing this, they go to the department physician who does the equivalent of the NFPA 1582 style physical, which is pretty extensive. They do a good job.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just saying that, the points that were made this evening about these requirements, that they have a certain amount of time to get their CDL or firefighter one, all those other things, cards, CPR cards. Should that be listed in the job description so that it doesn't turn people away? I mean, if someone says, hey, can I see a job description? And they get where it's, let's say that's emailed to them or something. They're like, oh, I don't have a CDL, therefore I don't think that it could hurt. And you did put in the catch-all last paragraph at the end that says, okay, circumstances change, it's not all-inclusive. And that's something that we see all the time, but I think
Right.
maybe something to the effect that, we will work with you, we'll work towards you doing this over a certain period of time. Because you don't want to just, discourage, everybody has to start somehow. Most people are not going to come in with all those credentials.
Right,
or
and that's part of the recruit and orientation
Right.
process that we do is when we have an applicant that's interested, we'll bring him in and do an orientation
Right.
to show him, what we offer, how you get training, where you can get training, and who's gonna sponsor you, and that's us. And we kind of give the speech of a two-way road. If you give some effort, we'll give a
Right.
lot to you also. We'll inherit a lot of resources from you, and we'll invest in you too.
Nick, you had a question?
How long is the orientation?
The orientation, it varies because what happens is we have our call officers and our training officer actually do the hands-on orientation with them. So it could take up to three weeks of doing nights with them.
And that's also the recruit training? Or is that
Yes.
separate?
Yeah, that's included.
So if I was a new individual, if I was a new person, I came in, I said I wanted to be a call firefighter, I passed the entrance test, excuse me. Then 3 weeks after I take your orientation and the recruit training, so I've been on the department a month, let's say. What is it that I can do?
After that, we recommend, this is where that point in their position within the department, we say, okay, now within a year, we like to get you in either an EMT basic program, we'll supply you with some CPR, or a firefighter one program. And we tell them how to get that, how to enroll into it, and we'll actually find programs for them. And we let them choose, do they want to do the EMT first or the firefighter first? And it seems to be working out real well, because some people really want to try to get their EMT for whatever reason. Maybe they need that for their full-time job someplace else. So we kind of get a benefit of them, training them, being on the department and trained, and it may benefit them, so it's a win-win for that particular applicant.
But what is it that they can do on the department as far as responding?
They'll ride and they'll be helpers. Obviously they won't be able to do any interior firefighting, but they'll be on the truck getting some experience on the fire ground or EMS or emergency incident, how to act appropriately, getting the chain of command kind of down that way. But they're mentored by certain folks wherever they're stationed, say at 18 or 19 or 17.
Thank you.
Any other questions? What about the other one? Any of those one?
And these are for the per diem, if I may?
The EMS member is, this is where it was confusing on, we have nighttime EMS folks that are just EMS trained only, and we have call EMS members that are on our call force that are just, you say, EMTs. So there was just one call EMS only, and we really didn't know where they all met. So I blended the two positions into one, called an EMS member. And it's still call or part-time, but the responsibilities were essentially the same. Whether they're responding in a call or they're taking a shift during the evening hours. So we blended the two together, and we found out the education, training, certification requirements were the same, and went on from there.
Go ahead, Nick.
Just a question, if on the call EMS, would that member still have the year to enroll in an EMT program?
Usually they're not designated as a EMS only until, say, for example, they complete their EMT, and now they're licensed. Or they have a certification behind them. Now they can decide, well, firefighting may not be my bag of worms, so I just want to be an EMT only. Now we can just designate them as an EMS member only, and this will be their job description. Okay, versus, they're going to be encapsulated as a call firefighter until that moment happens.
Follow-up.
Go ahead.
I'm just trying to put my arms around, because earlier you said that they have the choice of either taking an EMT or a firefighter program.
Right.
So if someone comes and they take an EMT program within that first year,
Yep.
they really can't do anything for the department until they've received their certification. Would it make sense for them to do their firefighting first, then if they're interested in pursuing EMS? Because according to this, you can't be an EMS member until you've
Right, you have certification.
gotten the certification.
And that's the thing is, depending on where that person's, because the EMT class is approximately 120 hours, depending on the schedule of the class. Could be nights, could be weekends, or both. And a firefighter 1 could be an odd program. It could be during the day, on the weekends, or nights, and they're both really long programs, over 100 hours. And so when we look at one person committing to one way or another, we get a sense of whether, they want to help out the community, whether, being an EMS person or a firefighter EMT. So we just don't want to cast anybody away if they have a particular interest, say, in one field or another.
Or I would just, if I may, then suggest that an EMS member could be someone who is getting their EMT, versus saying you have to have it first. Because if I want to join the department, but I only want to be an EMS member,
Right.
I technically would be that EMS member, but I really can't be because I haven't gotten my.
Right. Yeah, that was kind of like
Yeah.
one of those things where, when do you become an EMS member? Technically, under the state, you're not a licensed provider until you attain the certification. So we kind of went on that spin.
When do they start getting paid?
They get
for
paid.
training and-
They get paid immediately once they become a member.
So I
That's
would
where
say
they-
they're a member.
Yeah, that's why I said, they're technically a provisional call firefighter under probation. And then once they decide they're gonna say just become an EMT, or if they become an intermediate or paramedic, and that's all they wanna do, they become that EMS member. So, I know it's kinda confusing, but this is actually a lot cleaner than what it was, I think.
I have a couple of questions, and I don't know if, it's, it might be very, very simple, but I just find this a little confusing. When you go to the one that says, the second one, the EMS member, and it says, the summary, performs responsible work as an EMT for the town, engaged in emergency medical services. When I first went through this, I just assumed this was EMT, so this is not an EMT.
It could be, if you go under the essential duties and responsibility of the first one, you could have whatever certification you have within this job classification. It could be EMT basic, EMT intermediate, or EMT paramedic. And you're classified as an EMS member. Your duties are to perform your full range of skills depending on your certification.
Okay, so in order to be an EMS member, you need to be an EMT?
You need to be a licensed provider, whether it be EMT basic, intermediate, or paramedic.
That's the minimum, is it, basically?
Oh, okay. Now, if we go back to the first one with firefighter, it just says firefighter. Then it says performs responsible work as a firefighter/EMT for the town.
Right, you could be a firefighter and an EMT, and that's where their position would fall into this category.
Okay, but I guess is a little confusing to me is that it's a job description for a firefighter, it's not a job description for a firefighter/EMT.
We could change that.
Well, I don't know, do we?
I mean,
Because if we change it, then you can't have would it be firefighter, or should it be firefighter, or firefighter slash EMT. Because if you added EMT, then it wouldn't be just for a firefighter.
Right.
The job
And again, that's where I identified it under the number one, under essential duties, performs for a range of firefighter and firefighter EMT, depending on your certification attained.
I am, Scott?
I'd like to make a request for non-public session with respect to this. The questions that I have to do with our contract negotiations and as it pertains to this. So, just wanted to let you know that.
Okay.
So I'll pen my comments for non-public.
Okay. But comments that are not non-public, we need to have in public. Okay.
But that's one way you could approach that. In the title, you could say call firefighter, comma, firefighter EMT.
Okay. All right, it was just a little confusing to me, because then all of a sudden you go into the EMT and there's no mention of the EMT up there in the job description, in the heading. That's all. Were there any other questions of the chief? No? Okay. Seeing none, since we do have some that apparently deal with contract negotiations, we'll have to take that up in non-public. Okay. Is there anything else on this, chief?
Public would be tonight or some other time?
I don't know, would you be ready?
I'm ready right now. If you want to, it'll take me 5 minutes, but if you want to do it, you can step out in the back room.
Well, hang on 1 second, let me just look at one thing, 1 second. All right, because the only other thing is the town administrator, is there anything in the town administrator's report we need to do in non-public?
No?
Okay.
Just trying to- just clarification on what non-public that falls under, or is that a non-meeting?
That's a
Non-meeting then,
non-meeting.
right?
Okay.
Non-meeting.
So it'll have to be a non-meeting?
We would have to adjourn,
Right,
Right.
so we'd have to do that at the end.
right.
Okay. That's what we'll have to do, if you don't mind sticking around, chief.
You know what? You can call my cell phone. There's no need, I mean, seriously, you don't need to stick around. I mean, when we're ready, we'll call you, right?
Okay,
And
that's
then
fine.
you can just go on the phone.
That'd be great.
Yeah. You have his phone number, right?
Oh,
You can email him. It gets to his phone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
You're
Chief.
welcome.
Take care.
Okay, so the next item will be the town administrator's report.
Tonight in your consensus folder, well, first of all, your weekly meeting schedule is there. In your consensus folder, there are AP warrants, employee status reports for the police department, Parks and Rec, and also today, the one for Mike in the fire department. That was added today. You already voted on that, but not on the status report. The fire apparatus capital reserve fund, there's a disbursement of $142,000 to the town of Goffstown. There's a voucher in there for you to sign. You already voted on that, but we didn't have the voucher ready for you. So you need to authorize the chairman to sign that voucher. Event permit for the Proudy Ultimate Bike Ride on July 8th. And there's also the appointment papers that you did earlier tonight.
Okay, any, need a motion on the consensus folder?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you. An email was sent to you last week, and it's included in this packet regarding the schedule for the 2012 budget development. And that's at 8A in your packets. I was trying to back into dates, because you're still presenting on October 22nd to the Budget Committee, right? So, I guess my question to you folks is if department heads present on September 6th, September 12th, and September 19th, would you have enough time to develop your budget for that presentation on October 22nd?
How much time did we have last year?
I think you had 3 meetings, and this time I've given you 4. But really, that 4th one is just kind of finalized.
What do you think? You're the selectman's rep to the budget committee.
That's fine.
Anybody else have any concerns or
It's
comments?
such an early, I mean, you think about it, we don't even get to February or March, and then we're already starting to work on it in August. I've often felt that we spend way too much time on budgets, but that's my,
I
that's my
agree.
soapbox. It's crazy, you know, but that's fine.
I know.
We spend half of our year on budget, and then we work on it, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that schedule's okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Also, there was a complaint earlier this year regarding a dead animal along the side of the road, so we researched that. It is not budgeted this year for anyone to do that. And the RSA is at 8B in your tab. And I guess I need direction if you want to resume that service.
Well, I think that should go in the budget process.
Questions? Could we define what the service is? I mean, could we provide through Public Works or another department, Monday through Friday, a business hour, pickup of roadside animals within our budget? Short of, I guess there's a requirement for rabies shots?
Right.
And is that a requirement from?
From the insurance carrier, for one thing.
I don't know,
I'm not sure of the origins, but it could be insurance. But I think it's for the health and safety of your employee.
Right. Now, just a follow-up to that, the question that I was wondering, if you start that program, what animals are we gonna be picking up?
Correct, that's
We're
another.
gonna be picking up turtles and frogs? Snakes, salamanders? Yes.
I guess the clarification, are we looking for an animal control officer? Or are we looking for someone like?
Roadkill.
Exactly, yes, thank you, I didn't want to put it as, but someone calls up and says there's a dead raccoon in the street.
We had an employee who was doing that outside of his employment, correct? Here with the town of Goffstown.
He was doing it both during the day and
Okay.
as a stipend at night,
Okay,
when he was in his former job.
right.
Has this activity ever been done under contract?
Some towns do it under contract.
Some towns.
I don't believe we have ever done it
So
under
why
contract.
can't we enter into a contract with that individual to do it on the off hours?
You can, if it's part of their daily job, you can't enter into a
No, no,
contract with
but
them
if it's
after
part
hours.
of, but if it's, oh, really?
Right.
So why don't you just make
They're
it
on
not part
overtime.
of their daily job? Need to get it done.
Nick?
I guess I'm trying to, in trying to look at the budget and keeping things streamlined, is there a reason why we cannot find someone who would be willing to do it as part of their in the weekly time
Or a
frame?
couple of people, obviously.
Or a couple of people.
There's some-
I don't know what the cost of the rabies, is it a vaccine? It's not the rabies series like you would get if you were.
Just so I can have perspective, what is the cost when we had the stipend for this gentleman to
How
do
many
it
per
on the
an-
weekends?
per
What-
animal?
I think it was like $25 per
and
call.
Per call, and what did this average out in
A
the
year.
course of a year? I mean, what are we talking about here?
I couldn't tell you.
Are we talking about
Is it
$300 or
$500?
$400?
If it's that, I mean,
I mean, I don't wanna spend a lot of time for $400 if this gentleman's picking up dead animals for $25.
And I guess that's where, if I may have
This
asked,
person was picking it up during the day, and no stipend during the day, because they were already on the clock. So
Understandable.
we're only talking about, this person was getting a $25 stipend after hours.
I understand that.
and what did they do with the animal?
I couldn't tell you.
I expected her to dispose in a proper manner, but we can check with that after. But the question would be, how many, I mean, were we talking,
how many are we talking?
how many are we talking? How many can there be?
I don't
Well,
know.
it's gonna depend on what we're picking up.
It was my understanding that we were just gonna go and do it during business hours.
But
and
what
not
animals
after
are we gonna
hours,
pick up?
Unless it was a large animal.
But we weren't doing that.
No, that wasn't being done. I guess the positions changed, and there was no one that was interested in doing it.
Right, I didn't think we were dealing with deer or moose. We were, a cat, a dog, a squirrel, a chipmunk. I mean,
But if somebody calls up and says there's a dead turtle in the middle of the road, squashed turtle, do we pick it up?
Well, we did birds, remember, because the crows were carrying a virus, so for public health
Yeah, I
issues,
think-
we were bagging them and sending them for testing.
most people, I think if a resident complains that there's a dead animal in the road, I mean, we could look at it and say, well, it's just a turtle, but, maybe that's an attractant to kids, and we don't want kids walking out into the middle of the road to look at the dead turtle. So, and that's my point. I mean, is it that hard to call Public Works and say, hey, guys, when you get a break today, can you send somebody over with a shovel and pick up the dead turtle in the middle of the road? It's to me, it seems even simpler than just contracting somebody for $500. But I tend to oversimplify.
I think there's a little bit more to it just than that.
Get
too.
emails from the dead turtle guy.
I don't know if there's more to it or if we're just going to overcomplicate it. I mean, I think we're just looking for someone at nights and weekends, if
Right.
you have something there to be picked up. And I don't think.
Nobody does it during the week.
Well,
That's the point.
That's not the impression that I got.
Yes.
Really? No one's picking it up.
No.
I see
There-
stuff
there was-
getting removed. Who's picking it up then?
I don't know, the cat was there for over a week, because there was no one who
I don't know. I think
said
I'd
they would
rather,
pick
I'd
it up.
rather ask like Mike Walton or others, because he's the one who used to do it, and DPW will know, rather than trying to guess.
thank you.
Talk about it for the next
So
20
since he
minutes.
doesn't do it during the day, you would want to contract with him at night and weekends to do it? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, I think Steve's question was the appropriate one. How much are we talking about? I mean, if it's not a lot of incidents, if we're talking $500, I don't think there would be too many residents who are gonna be hard pressed that we're paying somebody $500 to be on call, or even $1,000 to pick up dead animals over the course of a year.
But
I
even
don't-
if we had those numbers, that wouldn't reflect what it would be doing it the way we just discussed. Because now, whatever he did during the day would inflate that number to what he did on nights and
Right.
weekends.
Well, let's get information from him.
I guess the concern, though, that I have is that we have a limited budget. We have no idea what's coming down the pike as far as what we're getting cuts on. I mean, we received another letter of another cut that we may not be getting. And, we functioned without it for a while. It just seems to me that we should put a plan together. What's involved? I mean, there's so many questions that are coming up that it's not included. I mean, I hear we're gonna pick up chipmunks. Well, we're gonna pick up chipmunks. What's the difference between a chipmunk and a mouse? I mean, where do you draw the line?
Chipmunk is bigger.
It all depends. Some mice are bigger. Depends on what breed they
They're
are.
from New York.
Okay, that's right. It could be Norwegian, too. Now,
I think the health officer determines if there's a health hazard, according to the RSA.
it just seems that there's several things here that we could discuss all night long and never come to any kind of conclusion. So it would seem to me that we should let the town administrator try to deal with police and public works, get a handle on what this is, what we used to do. How many of these did we deal with in the past? We don't have a clue. I mean, do you need the rabies shots? How is the animal, I read the RSA, how the animal's disposed of. From what I read in there, I'm not even allowed to throw the mouse that I catch in a mouse trap in a garbage can.
Yeah, and I don't see this RSA as anything what we're talking about. This is offensive. This is the penalty for someone who disposes of offensive matter. And then the environmental fact sheet talks about incidental animal burials, which would be your own pet, animal health emergencies, pet cemeteries, commercial disposal facilities, and infectious waste burial. Again, does not deal with what we're discussing.
I mean,
So
we
I don't
have-
find any information
No,
here.
what we need to establish is what's the disposal method that we're gonna use, for one thing, okay? Do we need to it appears that we need the rabies shots, but all these facts need to be put together so that we could have an intelligent
My
conversation.
understanding is that DOT has a pit at their site behind the cemetery for
Nick?
dead animals that they pick up.
But I think the basic question that we can determine now, because if we're going to go out to contract with someone, we're gonna have to determine, are we picking up a snake, a mouse, a chipmunk? And if the answer is no, then that same answer would be no if someone called us during the business week and our public works people were picking up those animals. We would say, no, we don't pick up mice, snakes, or, because that's a basic question. I think the question we need to answer, are we going to have something get hit by a car on a Monday during the day, but wait until Monday night so our contractor can come in and pick it up, or do it just the other way around and have it picked up during business hours at no other expense other than what the rabies shots may be.
Can I just jump in? I mean, here we get into these long conversations sometimes with things I think aren't that difficult. I think there's a big difference between a dead dog in a road
I agree.
or a large critter on the weekend versus, little squirrels and chipmunks. I don't think people are highly alarmed by a dead squirrel or a mouse or a chipmunk or a turtle, and we shouldn't get dragged into that part of these conversations. I think the reality is if there's a large pet in the road or a cat that's been on the side of the road, I think common sense dictates that, probably don't want that on the side of the road over the weekend, wait until Monday. And I think I think it's not that complicated. I think it's one of these things that we should bring Mr. Walton if he wants to discuss what this look like and what purchase and how it goes through. But I don't want to make it a long, drawn out. Personally, I don't want to see it being long and drawn out. It needs to be picked up. I mean, we spend money to make sure that the roundabouts look good and sidewalks look good. I think it's fair to say we can't leave a dead animal on the road if it's if it's of size and nature. I mean, it's not.
So what are we gonna do?
You want to bring Mr. Walton in to see if he's could put some air on this?
I
or
would
do we-
prefer bringing in the department chief and ask how he would handle this if it was his responsibility.
There you go.
All right. I can take. I don't know if he has to come in. I could take an email.
Yep, I'm good with an email.
Which department head?
Public
Animal
Works.
control has been with police, but disposing of roadkill has been DPW.
I'm just
That's
looking
why I
for
thought the
Two
two of
separate
them need to
topics.
get
Right.
together.
Just looking for disposal.
Yeah.
Disposal.
Animal control is the person who you call when there's a dog in your yard, or a coyote, or a rabid fox, or
Live animal.
a live animal.
All right.
Yes, Public Works.
Okay, Public Works, we're gonna. Nick?
Can we also get some costs? Because there are some commercial animal removal firms, as well as the cost of the vaccinations, shots, whatever we're required to have.
Okay. Also, we received a letter from the Hillsborough County
Right.
Commissioners. This letter is to advise you in the town of Goffstown that Hillsborough County will no longer pay taxes on the county complex and any associated property located in Goffstown. During the budget review process, the subcommittee of the county delegation reduced funding for the real estate tax line item to $1. The subcommittee, cognizant that the county has paid taxes in the past, took the position that the county's land is exempt from taxes. We as a board agree that both New Hampshire statutory and case law support that decision. Hillsborough County does not operate a farm on the land, and the property is used for governmental purposes authorized by law. For your edification, we reference New Hampshire RSA 7223, which specifically exempts the county land from the levy of taxes. Our understanding is that the underlying principle for this exemption is that one governmental unit cannot tax the property of another governmental unit, since it would result in the public taxing itself. Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact our legal counsel, Carolyn Kirby, Esquire, and her phone number is there. This was addressed to the chairman of the board, and Scott Bartlett has reviewed it and has talked to Carolyn Kirby, and is requiring further information from her. One of the parcels, the one that generated the largest taxes, had been used at one time by a private company manufacturing furniture, I believe, and that's why it was taxed. Accordingly, she says they do no longer occupy that building, and therefore there is no private enterprise generating funds, so that's understandable. But he's asked questions about how these are being used, and how that building is currently being used. Also, the other ones, there were 3 parcels that in 1988 they requested to put into current use. Those 3 parcels generate about $1,200 in taxes, and is vacant land. And so he has explained to her that that is still in current use, and we just can't take it out of current use. and still subject to taxation. So he is inquiring for further information from her regarding the use of all the parcels.
Just a question, I'm unclear, if the county land was never, if it was just, if it's in current use, there's nothing, there's no structures, it's just wooded land, why would they ever put it into current use if it's not, if it wasn't subject to taxation as county land?
Neither one of us was here at that time. However, if it's not, it has to be used, it has to be in use for governmental purposes to be free of taxation. Vacant land isn't in use for
And
governmental.
it is subject to taxation?
Right. That is his premise, yes.
Oh, okay.
But not their premise at this point.
And the reason I tell you this is because tomorrow is their budget committee public
Right,
hearing at 6
the
o'clock.
Bouchard Building.
And they are proposing to reduce that tax line to $1.
What were we receiving for the building being used for furniture?
I think it was about $8,000.
The tax bill for half a year this year, the one that just went out was $8,220.
So 16,000.
So that, Scott did send a letter out. He talked to Carolyn Kirby on the phone and then sent her a letter today, asking for further information.
I see no problem with it.
Well, I guess the question, there is a public hearing. I did get a call today from Representative Emerson, and he was concerned that we might, he had heard about, he's not on the delegation anymore. Representative Russ Day is on the delegation. But he was, he was concerned, he was disappointed about it, and, he just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose the window of opportunity with that, because they're having their meeting on Thursday. The delegation meets on Thursday to discuss this after the public hearing, so that was Representative Emerson's concern about that. And I guess one of the issues is there is a process to go through, that they have to go through, and whether or not they have the money in the budget or not, if we, if they owe us the tax money, regardless of whether or not it's in their budget or not, they owe us the tax money. One of the other things too that, is a little disconcerting is that here it is, at the last minute, they tell us that they're not gonna do it. We all go through a process, our budget, everything that we do is predicated on those revenues. And at the last minute, we're not gonna pay you. So that's a little disconcerting, that's all.
And that's a problem of being on a different year from them.
Right.
They're doing it in their budget year.
It is what it is.
Yep.
I think that's somewhat understandable, but, was that the first that we ever heard of this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where I guess I have a little
Yeah,
issue.
that's what I meant, it's a little disconcerting.
There are so many opportunities, whether it's administrator to administrator, state rep to, commit, that's the most disappointing, not to just be blindsided by it.
I sat on the.
Nick had a comment first.
But just a question, when Scott inquired, what are they currently using that building for? That
They
has the
said it's for
furniture?
storage, and they had meetings, like the charrette was held in there, and.
And they say farming too, there's farming going on in one of those. There's a
Yeah, he
farm.
asked about
Yeah.
farming, but she said it's not a county farm. County farms are are not exempt from taxation, but that's not a county farm, according to the definition of county farm. It's a garden.
A garden?
It's a garden there. Mhm.
A garden?
Yeah, it's
Grows
not
vegetables?
not a farm, it's a garden.
Okay. I didn't know that.
There's supposedly a statutory distinction between the two.
Now, do we have to provide services to the county if they need it, or no?
We do.
Or do we not?
Well,
What?
We provide services.
No, I'm just saying, right, at the
So-
prison
Well,
sometimes, or?
Dave, can you make a comment?
You mentioned that one of the buildings had been used by a furniture company, and that because it was in commercial use, they paid
Taxes.
a property tax. I attended the county land development charrette a year ago, and even at that time, somebody had mentioned that that commercial activity had ceased to exist several years prior to that. And if it was a homeowner situation wanting to change the assessment of their home, if that's documented before 1 April, then the taxes for that year are changed. Well, there's been several years of opportunities where the county could have
Notified us.
notified us to say, we have property that's no longer in a certain type of use, you need to change your assessment. And that was never done, and now it's beyond the 1 April date.
Exactly.
If it was a homeowner, we would say, wait till next year.
I mean, you could also look at that as that we've had the pleasure of several years of tax income from the county when they didn't have to pay it.
That's true.
You know, that one building seems fairly cut and dry. If there isn't a commercial operation going on in there and it's used for county use,
Yeah.
they don't owe the taxes, but the remaining isn't really a large dollar figure for the current use. I mean, we're not talking.
The real value in current use is when it comes out of current use.
Right.
Right.
Dave?
Does the assessor need this board's a motion to change the assessment on a property after 1 April?
Well, he's inquired about inquired to get it in writing, what the use of that building is currently. When he gets that information, it will come back to the board, and then he will make a recommendation to the board, and the board will take action. He just wanted you to know this because the budget meeting is tomorrow night, and he doesn't agree with taking the current use. Well, he can't take the current use. They're still subject to current use taxes if they take it out of current use.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know if that's actually the place to bring up any of this issue with the taxation at the public hearing for that.
He has told her that he would recommend that they increase that dollar to cover those lots that are in current use.
Which doesn't amount to much,
Right.
in comparison.
Probably about 1,800 a
Yeah.
year, maybe.
But
1,600.
if they take it out of current use, then they're
Not
going
take
to
it out, but leave it in current use and pay the 1,600 a year, whatever it is, on those parcels.
Clarification? So what are they proposing now, that they were taking it out of current use?
No.
No.
They were
Keeping.
proposing that they were exempt from taxation on it.
Right, exactly what they
But
say.
no one's exempt from current use. Once
Right.
you've put it in and they put it in,
Because the other option is taking it out, and then they're
then there's a.
subject to the full taxation.
Exactly.
That's right, and that's statutorily, that's been clarified because of what happened with the state purchase of, sale of land that was in current use. Or they purchased land that was in current use, they put a liquor store on it. Town of Exeter told them that they owe them the current use. They said, we're the state, we don't pay. And consequently, legislation's been passed that they do, government entities do pay for land coming out of current use. So that's the way it stands right now. So, with that, I mean, is there
Who-
any?
Who conveys this back to Representative Day?
No, all I said was that Representative Day is on the
Executive.
delegation, but I got the call from Representative Emerton,
Emerton.
who's not on it, but he found out about it, and he was just concerned, wanted to make us aware of, didn't want us to lose that window of opportunity with the public hearing. If we felt that that's where it was appropriate. And again, Representative Emerton didn't have all the details.
Well, you're referring to a public hearing that the county
On the
is-
budget.
That the county is holding.
Right, on their budget.
Should someone from this town attend that public comment session and say, your $1 line item should be 1,600 because the land is in current use? We need to convey this information to the county delegation before they vote.
Well, it was conveyed to Carolyn Kirby
And
today.
let me
but-
just refer back to the bottom of the letter. It says, "Thank you for your time and attention to this matter. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact our legal counsel, Carolyn Kirby Esquire, and the phone number, which is what we are
Right,
in
which we did.
communications. So that communication will be available on their Thursday delegation meeting.
Is that,
If,
yes?
if she attends, I don't know, does she attend all their meetings?
Every meeting that I've gone to, I've seen Carolyn Kirby there.
Okay.
But then again, I haven't gone to delegation meetings, but all the commission meetings, they always have it.
I think our concern is whether or not they're liable for any taxes or how they budget is how they budget.
Right,
And
it's- yeah.
whether there's $1 in there or $1 million in there, if they owe the taxes, they owe the taxes.
Right. Okay, so we'll continue through the channel that we've been doing between the assessor and Carolyn Kirby. Okay, and I guess we should authorize the town administrator, anything that she needs to do in the meantime.
Need a motion on that?
Might be cleaner. Just a motion to authorize the town administrator, any communication or information required on this matter.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
That's all I had, public.
That's why you have a public? Okay. So then, town administrator's report is done. And then we have selectmen discussion. Review rules of procedure and all boards recap.
I've placed at 9A in your
Yeah.
packet, Annex A, regarding appointments and Board of Selectmen vacancies.
Sorry about that. Okay. Assume everybody's had a chance to take a look at those rules of procedure. Any questions or comments on them?
Well, I think in this, I'm sorry,
Go ahead, Scott.
in this last episode, we didn't follow our rules to a degree. I mean, I don't think we solicited candidates from the public for all of them. I just don't think we were consistent there. And I think in the future, we should pen this so every board knows that, in March or whatever date is set, we get something from the town clerk, whose terms are expired, et cetera, and everything goes on the web as to what opportunities exist, and there's a certain window of time, even maybe before that, Maybe it's in February or something, if you're interested in, because technically we have a certain amount of, that are always up for renewal, that come up. That will eliminate, I think,
I thought we did that.
what?
They were all
Yeah,
put
they
up
were?
on the
They
web.
were.
Oh, okay.
They were.
We
519.
established that the
Yeah.
last time.
Okay. So the bigger question is that the board has had different practices over the years, Phil, from what I understand. I mean, I only know one practice, but in the past, the board did not always get the recommendation can you help us with that?
No, it evolved because, as I stated,
The size of the board changed and.
well, yeah, and what happened was, when we would get, we went into this application process, And as a result, rather than get into the whole process, but we developed an application form, and at first the question was on there, what your qualifications were for that committee. And then it came up, well, you don't really need qualifications, nothing in the statute, I mean, unless certain things you need to have, certain requirements, or you need to be as a citizen or a taxpayer in a certain age to serve on a committee. So that got changed, and then when you got an application that just had a person's name, didn't have much of what they had, nobody knew who the person was, the thing is give it to the committee. Let the committee take a look at this and see if this is a person, find out if this is a person that's interested in it, and that's how this developed.
Well, I mean, clearly we have to fill some of these vacancies. That's imperative.
Mhm.
I mean, our first duty is they should be made expeditiously, so, which we have to fill them. And we decided to hold off, so we had a procedure in place.
Right.
You know, so that's where I think we're at, is that we have to take some action on these folks. They're in limbo land. And I think we need a yay or a nay, you know, on these, a vote on them.
Well, I guess the question that we had was the rules to review them.
Right.
I mean, if you go through them, we did do members of the public, we did do request publicly. Okay, we did do that. I mean, if we all agree that that's the appropriate way, then we can just check off that portion of it. Then,
We did ask the committee for their recommendations to fill vacancies, correct? We did that.
right, but I guess the question comes down, is that, do we want to continue that?
I guess I don't necessarily mind the recommendation, but I just don't think it should just be accepted that we're always gonna take their recommendation. I mean, every individual selectman it's in their own prerogative whether or not they want to appoint someone. So, and that being said, there may be instances in which this board, I mean, we give somebody a 3-year appointment on a committee, and some committees are more important than others, but I mean, it's still a 3-year. And you had said to me, I believe at the last meeting or one before that, that the board actually interviewed people for some of these. Am I mistaken on that, or? That the board had in
When
the
you say the
past-
board, which board are you
Your
talking?
the prior boards of selectmen had actually interviewed people for committee members.
There were different methods. I mean, sometimes individual selectmen would come forward with
With a
names.
name.
You know, when it was simpler when it was 3. Because if you had three positions open, each selectman got to pick one. I guess the other question that I have though on that, it says Board of Selectmen will seek committee recommendations to fill vacancies.
How about May?
Well,
I wrote May.
yeah, okay. Nick?
I was gonna say, I think we should seek, but maybe a sentence after that, that a recommendation does not, some caveat similar to what Selectman Gross mentioned, that just a recommendation doesn't necessarily guarantee an appointment. All it is a recommendation.
I understand what you're saying. The only thing of it is that we're laying out a process to follow, and I think that when you lay out this process and then you put that caveat on the bottom that this whole process doesn't mean anything. I just think that if you put that they may seek committee recommendations, it leaves it up to the board at that time to determine if they want the recommendations.
Okay, follow up?
Go ahead.
But I think that places the board in a worse, not position, but why would you seek a recommendation 1 year and then the next year say, nah, we don't care what the committee's recommendations are? I would rather it be one way or the other. Either you say we're not seeking recommendations, period, or we are. But I think we get into that gray area again when we decide, you know what, I don't think, for this particular term, we don't want to seek
I
recommendations.
disagree with you, because I think it's it's the board's prerogative if they want to seek the recommendations. I mean, the board may say, we're just gonna go forward with everybody that's there, we're gonna do it. We're not gonna do it, or we're gonna take one of them, ask for a recommendation. I think it should be, it's up to the board to determine. I think this ties the board's hands a little bit.
I disagree. If I may.
Go ahead.
I think if we followed this procedure, things would work out. I think there were times we just didn't follow the procedure. If there are 4 candidates and 3 openings, each name gets read, and you only have 3 yay votes, and the top 3 vote getters are nominated. If there's 2 candidates for one position, the same process.
The process itself, when you read it, isn't bad. I think what transpires, though, sometimes is that you have committees or groups, and they're making this recommendation, and if you're not in with that group, it kind of puts up a barrier for those who might be on the outside, knowing what committees are available, and if they would like to participate in being in one of those committees. And sometimes it becomes that group thinking that that's the group. In other words, let me, if I can phrase it better. Let's just say if I'm someone who's looking to volunteer and on a committee of that nature, I'll say, it'd be nice if they should spend some time and go to those committees, but all of a sudden this committee can self-perpetuate itself by always taking the same people and saying, hey, we recommend this person. After a while, anyone else who might want to participate or look for that, it starts to make the pool small. And I think we're seeing small pools now, in fact. And the other part is that because if it seems like it comes from the communities, and not so much that it's, even though we do post it, that people aren't, there's not a large awareness of people saying, hey, you know what, here are the committees, here's when they're coming up and their knowledge of how it works. So I think the process, I think you're wrong, right? I think it's good. I think it's just the way we go about it. I think the recommendations became so strong that, once again, recommendations became so strong, I think some of these groups perpetuated themselves, and it didn't leave opportunity for others.
And I'll agree with it. If that's the mindset that we have, then eliminate the recommendations. What I'm saying is I'd like to see consistency. Either eliminate them, because we want to give everyone the impression or the thought that it's a fair game. We're not going on clicks, or whether you've been there for 3 years, everybody has a fair shot. This board's going to make the appointments. Or we are going to look for recommendations, but I think we set ourselves up as that same type of, or for being accused of picking and choosing which committees we decide to get recommendations from, and when it doesn't suit us or when we want to, we just decide to go ahead with appointments. I just want to see consistency, either one way or the other.
And I like what Selectman Fournier and Campusano had said, and if I interpret all that right, my point would be just take that sentence, the board will seek committee recommendations, take that sentence completely out. I know the chair has spoken against that, but just take that sentence completely out and put the burden is on this board to solicit candidates and nominate candidates. Now, there's nothing, at that point, there's nothing preventing an existing committee from putting a recommendation forward to us. But just don't make it black and white, that we must seek their recommendation, because that reinforces what Selectman Fournier has just said.
Scott?
So.
I think sometimes I'm not saying it's coincidental, but what happened in the past, I don't think this board acted together. It was 5 individuals, so it's so hard to say that you can pick and choose, because you don't know when you're picking and choosing, because you don't know when there are three people who are for a particular person or maybe against them, so you just don't know. That's the hard part. It is unpredictable on some of these, and it has been. It wasn't just last year. It was a year or two ago where we had a similar situation. It was a close vote, 3-2, and it is what it is. But I think that we should reserve our rights to have, other people help us in terms of getting people if we can't do it. But I just don't want a committee to think that's going to be a rubber stamp. So kind of what Steve said, you don't get a lifetime appointment. You don't have any of those things. Yeah, we'll take your recommendation, but please don't think that it's automatically going to get rubber stamped. That's the only thing that I want committees to understand. We want your recommendation, but don't assume it's going to be a rubber stamp. Because it's up to any selectman to say yay or nay.
Just a new point is, we've mentioned 3-year appointments, but that 3-year is not in this at all.
Some of them are set up by statute.
And some are by bylaws of the committees.
So that's at really appointment by appointment.
It is, and if they're filling someone leaves in their term, then they only serve to the end of the term of that appointment
To keep
unless
the
the
cycle,
statute's otherwise.
to keep the cycle
Correct.
valid.
Right.
Okay. And I have another complication to put into discussion. I'm the chair of the Rail Trail Development Committee, and several members of that committee are non-resident town employees. And we even have a non-resident member, a county commissioner. And so both of those would not be allowed under paragraph 1.
Well, we're talking about two different type of committees.
Are we?
Yeah, I think that the Rail Trail Committee is a committee that's been put together by the Board of Selectmen, and these other committees are committees that we're talking about that are statutory committees.
I think one addresses that. Members of permanent boards, committees, and commissions appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
Permanent boards. The Rail Trail is not a permanent board. It's created by the Board of Selectmen. Its job, its function is completed.
That's temporary, that's 2 temporary committees.
Right.
And then under temporary, it says 6 months, could be extended for 3 months. Well, this particular committee's been in existence for 4 years.
And limited
So
to
it's in a
residents,
gray area.
non-resident employees, and taxpayers.
Well, and a Goffstown taxpayer, a
Mhm.
county taxpayer, a state taxpayer,
Goffstown taxpayer.
but it doesn't say that.
Person who's resides in a nursing home would be a member, so they could be eligible for the committee. A member of the women's prison.
But I think Selectman Pierce brings up a point, because if you look at 2.4, we have set up temporary ad hoc committees and have not followed, the written charter portion where we've sat down and come up with the mission and the objective and deliverables and deadlines.
Well, I guess this brings to a point that not all committees are going to fall under this. That rail trail is a longer projection. The rail trail committee is going to exist as long as it's looking for outside sources of funding for the committee. And I think that does follow a goal of the Board of Selectmen. So I think it shows that there might be a need for either to add another section for committees that don't fall under these categories.
Not permanent, but not temporary?
Well, that the Board of Selectmen could, and I guess where I see this as, this is, you put these rules of procedure together, and the board is handicapped by this. Because when you look at that, that's a unique differences with the Rail Trail Committee, the people that you put on there. So we're gonna give them deliverables, okay? The deliverable we're gonna give them is, you're gonna come up and with sources of funding. Well, their ability to provide or those deliverables to the Board of Selectmen is gonna depend on the ability to get grants, outside sources of funding, which are all going to be subject to the economy. And the way things are right now, I don't think they could put it together within 6 months or a year. So this, by its own nature, is something that goes beyond this.
Most of your ad hoc committees have been a minimum of 1 year. You had the Code of Ethics.
That's correct.
You had your ADA ad hoc. They were all a 1-year assignment when the board gave it. So maybe the 6 months is unreasonable, and maybe it should be at least minimum 1 year with an extension of 1 year if needed.
Or change the wording to a period deemed appropriate by the Board of Selectmen.
And do away with the word temporary committee, just ad hoc committee, and make it more flexible on the
Yes.
period.
Mhm.
And the Rail Trail Development Committee would be happy with that, a 1-year appointment, renewed in March. The membership would be more flexible,
You'd want to stagger them, though.
yes.
So if, with that,
Well, the ad hoc committees would be 1-year appointments.
And I mentioned at the all boards meeting that that particular committee is develop the trail, seek grant funding, and put together grant packages.
Right.
And at some point in time, that will be achieved. And then the continuing maintenance of that parcel of land for the town falls under the Park Commission. I mean, play devil's advocate here, and you could say, turn it all over to the Park Commission right now.
no, they have to put it in their budget and develop a plan and
Right.
figure out what kind of
But
maintenance is
having-
going to be done
Having
on
been
it.
part of that committee for 3 years, exactly what the chair has discussed. That committee works for 6 months to put together a grant application.
For one grant application.
Or several, yeah.
Right.
And it takes the talent of a lot of people in that committee to do it. I believe we gotta move forward on this. Should we give red lines to Sue for discussion next session?
Oh, we could do that. If you wanted to take action on it tonight. It's up to the board.
We're not looking at 2 issues within it, why don't we just move forward and take action?
Yeah.
And the first one's being, there's the line with the Board of Selectmen Committee recommendations. Do we wish to have it, yes or no? That's my understanding here, correct?
Make a motion.
I'll make a motion that, I think I'll make a motion that we do remove that line. I think that recommendation is going to come anyway.
I will second that.
Okay. It's been made and seconded, and I guess the question that I have, does this remove the ability from the Board of Selectmen to, if a person fills out we want them to go through this process in the beginning of it, that we solicit candidates from the public. And part of that process is fill out an application, a volunteer application form, am I correct? On that volunteer application, is there any requirement that they have to fill out anything besides their name, their telephone number, and the fact that they're a Goffstown resident?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
The answer is yes. There is a slot where they have to explain.
Is it a requirement? Is it required?
all of the applications I've seen has, the applicant has put some expression of why they feel this is.
I understand your comment. When you fill out an application for your driver's license, it also asks you for a social security number, which you do not have to put in because they don't need it. You can still get it. They're asking for
May I
it.
ask the town administrator to read that one paragraph in the application?
I know what it says, but is it required?
That is a separate issue. First of all, application isn't even listed in your rules of procedure. I don't even see volunteer application.
Then-
If you want to, that's just a procedure that's developed over time. If you want to review that form later, you can review the form and determine what information you want to keep or add to that form.
And one would say, if I'm an applicant, I would add that information if I'm looking to do this. I mean, one would just put their name and telephone number, I would expect. They want
Be judged accordingly.
because that's what I'm going to be judged upon. If I'm giving the effort that I would like to volunteer and provide a service, I'll do that. I don't think we need to overcomplicate this one.
Okay. But I guess the question I have is, if all we have is a name, a telephone number, and the fact that a person is wants to volunteer on a committee, and doesn't particularly care which one it is, does that mean that that person's not qualified because they didn't tell us their qualifications? Or they say, I'm a high school graduate, I graduated Goffstown High School, and I'd like to serve on a committee. Does that make that person ineligible? But my point is, if the board had any further questions, and we wanted to know any further questions, are our hands tied with our rules of procedure to seek additional information? That's all I'm asking, is if our hands are not tied, then I don't have a problem with eliminating that. It's just a question that I'm asking.
I think our hands are tied I mean, this is a guidance document.
Yeah, it's not.
It's a
I mean,
guidance document.
There's been times I've called up people and
Yeah.
spoke and asked them questions and just to get an idea and an understanding. I don't see, I think Selectman Gross is absolutely correct. And the only reason I brought that sentence up is because there was a lot of discussion about it, question of regarding does SEEK mean I have to have it or not? I think there's lines of communications that are formal and informal, and you're gonna have these recommendations one way or the other.
Okay. As long as we all understand the reason why I'm bringing it up. I want to make sure that this is not etched in stone and this is the way it has to be.
But the question about whether, if we remove the line, does that, hopefully it fosters more of an environment that people will come and look at and say, hey, you know what, I don't have to be rubber stamped by the committee, I can come into my own, and I understand that I'm coming. Okay.
All right, I'll buy into that. Is there further discussion, Nick?
I was just saying, I don't see a problem with asking for recommendations. You know, and the caveat, as Selectman Gross said, is they're recommendations. It's not an appointment, it's just a recommendation, but I would like to have input from the committees.
And I'm not saying they won't, we're just talking about that line, I think they come formally and informally.
All right. There's been a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it's 4-1-0.
So that was the motion to eliminate it.
Right.
Eliminate the third sentence in section 1.3.
Say that again, Sue?
Second sentence.
Second sentence.
No, it is third.
Third sentence in section.
1.3.
DOS shall seek committee recommendations.
Right, I'm sorry, it is third. I thought you said first, that's why I was questioning.
Third.
Okay. And next issue we had was the one that Dave brought up.
So section 2, wherever a temporary committee is, would be ad hoc committee. And I think he had made a good point on 2.2, that we put Goffstown before taxpayers. And do you want to add any other officials in their official capacity, since you have a county commissioner?
Yes.
Other government officials?
I couldn't think of the right words to include other governmental officials.
Okay, Sue, could you repeat what you said to put
On
taxpayers
2.2,
before,
put Goffstown before taxpayers?
and Goffstown taxpayer?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
And then other government officials in their official capacity.
Does it necessarily have to be government officials? For instance,
Well, it could be any official, I suppose.
because Rails to Trail have 2 positions for Friends of the Goffstown Rail Trail.
It's,
And if those individuals were not residents, but they're representing Friends of the Goffstown Rails Trail, as long as they're the representative for that organization.
Okay.
You know, you could add a sentence in there. You could add a sentence in there, because you also, always gonna get some committee that's gonna be the unique committee. But you could add a sentence in there, that the membership is limited or as deemed necessary by the Board of Selectmen.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
And then in 2.4, the fourth bullet, specific period of existence, you want to address that one?
Which one was that, Sue? I'm sorry, I was writing.
2.4, the fifth bullet.
Specific period of existence,
Yeah, that's the one that makes it for 6 months only, and then you can add 3 months.
or as deemed necessary by the Board of Selectmen. Did that cover it?
But make it 1 year initial
1 year.
Yeah.
instead of 6
1
months.
year
There's
initial,
not much
yeah.
we get done in 6 months anywhere.
Right.
No, the reason why I say it, when you establish up a committee, in order to have the staggering terms, you may want to put in a term for 1 year, a term for 2 years, and a term for 3 years to stagger it.
But this is for,
But these
this
are
is
temporary,
temporary,
so
These are
This is
temporary.
The life of
they're-
the committee.
Yeah.
the life of an ad hoc committee.
Yeah, but the committee might be a committee that's got to go further.
You reappoint them.
Yeah.
After a
You-
year.
I think your goal is to get deliverables within a year, and if not, to extend it for another year.
Okay, that's
But-
fine.
Or even another year for rail trail, because of the scope of that.
That's fine.
Okay. Anything else in this? We're good for
Rest
now?
of the board representatives to committees.
I'd like to, Mr. Chair, if that's the case, I'd like for the board to take action on these outstanding appointments next week.
Okay.
So we need a motion on those
motion.
changes.
Yes.
We had a motion on the one, but we need a motion for
On
the
the other one.
changes on
Right.
2.0.
Section 2.
Did you make a motion?
I'm not
Yes,
changing it.
a motion for the changes in 2.0 paragraphs that we just discussed.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Sue, for your help.
Nick?
Sue, do all of the committee vacancies come up at the same time? Are they all in March?
Yes, the end of March.
Can we try to get them all presented to the board
Mhm.
at the same time?
The problem is that after town meeting, some committees have already met for the month of March and haven't dealt with that issue.
Why does it have to be
They
in
don't have to
March?
deal with it, though.
Why do we have to do it in March?
Where I was,
Why don't we, there's nothing that says that we have to make committee appointments in March.
I guess where I'm going, you just eliminated the recommendations.
But we still have to know who's interested in continuing.
Right, but I
Well,
guess
the
what I'm
oth-
trying to say is, why do this at a time when we're always so busy with
Right, but
March is
if
the
I could
worst time.
continue, if we put vacancies up on the website, people on the committee are free to fill out a vacancy application. So if we say all applications must be in by February,
That's what you need to do. You need to
Yeah.
decide your time limit on posting these
Right, that's it.
vacancies.
exactly, and then
so
whether or
that-
not it's the first week of March, the second week of March, the third week of March, first week of April, we should be able to get all of them, and in one meeting, deal with all the vacancies and make all the appointments.
So you're defining a vacancy as an expired term.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
Whether or not if someone's interested, they go into the pool with all the others.
Expired term though, right.
Okay.
Mhm.
But I guess where I'm leaning towards is, I don't think that that March is the greatest time to do this. There's so much going on. I mean, I think, April or May is a better time.
Traditionally, it's done because that's when elections have been.
No, I understand that, but I mean, you
why.
can have the dust settle on an election and then do it.
So we could list the vacancies for the whole month of March, give
Right.
people the whole
To
opportunity
me,
to
I
get
just
the
think,
apps
I just
in?
think that's a much,
And then appoint in April?
Appointments within 60 days after the formation of a new board?
That's a different topic.
Something different.
Right, that's a different topic. We're talking
The other,
about.
the other thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
To try to prevent what has happened over the last month, should we have something where the board will, was there a sense, Nick, that you felt that people deserved an up or down vote? Was it your motion failed to get a second? Because that's
At the
some-
least, I
Okay,
think
but
they
if-
felt.
but- Okay, but if
felt they
that's the
deserved that.
case, then, you know, we could put in our procedures that either, one, we stick to what we have here, where it has to be a motion and a second, or it could be each person who has applied gets a, you know, gets an up or down vote or something. How do you wanna? Because what happened there, obviously, there wasn't a second, so it never got to a vote.
Yeah, so that's not gonna
It's
eliminate
the
the
same-
problem,
yeah.
because you have the same thing. You make a motion, if there's no second, you
That
can't
means
vote.
it's a 4-1 vote. Again.
I don't think it was the, if I may, I don't think it was the issue of the vote or the non-vote. I think it was the issue of the silence afterwards. I think that was a separate situation that we've already discussed
Okay.
up and down. But I think if we have a list of 5 committees and all of the names of the people seeking one of those positions, we follow these procedures. If we have 3 positions and we've got 6 people, you run through the names, you vote, each person only gets 3 votes, and the top vote getters are appointed. It's democratic, it's in the open, and you just go right down all your committees and you make your appointments.
We can do that. We know the expired terms and post them for the whole month of March. Give everyone an opportunity to know they have to file an application, whether they're currently serving and seek reappointment or whether they're new. They all have to file an application, and then in April, you can vote on them.
Yep.
Or decide if you want to interview them, depending on if you don't know the people, or that would handle most of them. However, anyone who vacates a position during their term, and mid-year, you know, you're going to have those that come up.
Okay.
It just seems that they go on and on and on, and we're always getting this committee and that committee, and a month later, another committee, and
That was the other, I was
keeps
having a
going.
thought to that, can we just do periodic points around the calendar that when there's an opening, we won't be addressing openings till each quarter on a certain, I don't wanna say it has to be a certain date, but once per quarter, and just address it in one-shot meetings.
Well, that ideally, I mean, theoretically, that would work, but you may have a committee that needs another person on it.
Well, like, I guess part of that process, those who have alternates, et cetera, I'm just saying that it just puts you in a point. I think what Nick is looking for is that you're looking for action to move forward on any appointment, up or down, no?
Right.
Okay.
No. I'm not talking about the vacancies that occur during the
Okay,
year.
no, no,
I'm
but
talking
say-
about that annual reappointment process.
Okay, I understand the annual reappointment process, and I understand the extension to leave it a little way out of March, but also during the course of the year, there are people who will come and leave committees for whatever reasons, correct?
Right.
And I'm just saying that as they come and go, we kind of, okay, here it is, and we kind of filter it. Maybe we just, that doesn't have to be, it can be quarterly, or maybe every other month that we say, here's a date that if any vacancy comes up, it'll be in this meeting, and we just address it then also. Just a thought, and forces you to address it, and it doesn't linger. That's all, just a thought.
Well, if someone submits, leaves, vacates their
Or-
position, we should post it and determine how long you want it posted before.
Yeah, because I mean, it
You
grows
want to
dry
post it for
after,
another month?
it grows dry after a period of time.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dave?
We did not resolve when the 1 year or 3, when does the term expire? We started this to discuss end of somewhere in March, somewhere in April. Just, would it be acceptable to say the terms expire at the end of month April? And that would give,
Currently, they all expire at the end of March.
right now, I know, right now, it doesn't say March
Right.
in here, but we could put a paragraph in here, terms expire end of March, or terms expire end of April.
Well, some of them are statutory.
You know, some of your elected official vacancies are filled by the board, not all of them.
Well,
Some are
the
filled by
taxpayer, the tax collector, all those appointments,
Those are annual, yep.
those are annual. Those technically aren't committees, though. Permanent boards, committees, and commissions. This,
Which one do you appoint? This is an elected one that you appoint if there's a vacancy. It's not the budget committee, they appoint their own. Is it library or cemetery?
Library, I think.
library appoints their own, and
They appoint their
budget
own?
committee,
No, they make a recommendation, I think we appoint.
Right.
which
There-
one?
I think
There's some,
library.
there's a couple elected ones that aren't
Yeah.
treated like all the other elected ones.
The budget committee
Does their own.
fills their own vacancies during the course of a year.
Right, no, the library trust, right, if there's a vacancy because the library trustee steps down,
I have these all
resigns,
written upstairs, but
then
I
that-
just want to point out.
we take the recommendation, and that appointment is by us.
Right.
And David's right, because the budget committee is the one, they do their own.
Yes.
Planning board does their own.
Most elected boards do their own vacancies, with the exception, I think, of two. And I think library and maybe cemetery trustee was the other one, but I have it written up, down
Right,
upstairs, so.
okay.
Is there a problem with them expiring the end of March? I
No,
mean, we can still post it there, for the whole month of March, that these terms are expiring the end of March, if you want to
Why can't you
apply.
post it for the whole month of February?
I was just saying that it's
Busy and
just so,
deliberative
it's just,
session.
everything is so busy and hectic, I just think,
Well,
that's just my.
February would be worse,
And
I
what happens
think.
if someone doesn't get elected? Maybe they want to then serve as a committee, so now it gives them an opportunity, hey, I lost in
Yep.
March, and now I wanna
Like-
serve on a committee.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they say they don't want, I just,
There's an example before the board for an appointment, just exactly that case. An individual lost in March, but now wants to serve on a committee.
Nick?
And we would just want to make sure that we do it maybe the first week of April, so that
Right.
the committee is not serving or meeting
Right.
with
Right.
missing members.
Yeah, I think that it works out perfectly if you do that, because your terms are expiring the end of March right now. So if you post all those for the whole month of March, then you can act on it in April. And how you act on it may be, if you don't know the people, you may want to have them come in and meet with you. I don't know.
That should work. Point.
A new paragraph in here, appointments will be confirmed in the month of April. Doesn't say, when in the month of
If you
April,
want to
but
be that specific, it seems like we're getting away with less specificity here. Do you want to get that specific?
I think this is fine, that's me. I don't think we
Says
need to
it-
put the
appointment
dates.
shall be
No,
made
yeah, no, I
expeditiously.
agree, because I think that may wind putting
Yeah,
us into a
I'm
bind.
fine with what it says
Okay.
on that topic.
And we'll just add to the volunteer application form to apply in the month of March. The openings will be posted on the website and to apply within the month of March, and
they'll be,
the board would
they'll
take
be
action in April.
reviewed and for action in the month of April.
Yep.
Okay.
Just
Nick?
clarification. Would that, I'm just thinking, you might want people, if somebody decides in October they're interested in a committee, you would still want them to fill out the application, because a vacancy could occur throughout the year.
That's true.
Right.
We'll put something, typically most
Appointments occur in April.
unless a vacancy occurs during the year. Put some caveat in there.
Right.
And then in March, we just remind everyone that the filing period is coming.
Since a lot of these committees derive their authority from this board, or they're appointed, is there an would you think that if somebody off the street wanted to apply to be on a committee, wouldn't we want them to at least get an interview or to be spoken to by that committee or commission?
I don't know what you mean.
I guess what I'm driving at is, under the current practice, some committees actually, when someone fills out a volunteer form, regardless of who they are, they will interview, like Parks and Rec Commission. They interviewed all the people that wanted to serve on that commission, and then they rendered something. That's a lot better process than just saying, do you and you still want to do it? And if you do, good, we'll submit your names. And then you have two people who wanted to be on the commission, never an interview, nothing. And I think that's what we're trying to prevent, if I'm not mistaken. So when we take action, we will have the list of every single person who filled that out. Now, if we do decide that we want a recommendation, I would think that the committee or commission if there were two spots that were open and there was 4 people vying for them, if before they made a recommendation, did you speak to or interview these people? That answer should be yes, in my opinion, but.
See, that's where, that's where we're gonna start, again, dragging this process out, because if the filing period is in March, we get the list of all the vacancies and in the first week of April, and now we start looking at the list saying, okay, do we wanna get recommendations for this committee, and now we're looking at the second week of April, the third week, when the next time the committee meets, and so now again, we're dragging the process out for months. That's why I thought if we left in that committee recommendation, that gets done prior to anything coming to us. So we have all of that information.
Not necessarily, you still have to have that window.
March would be that window.
So then, if you went that route, the committee would still have to technically interview people in the closing of that period, so that would be April. So there's no difference, I don't think. I mean.
The difference, if I
it's
may.
just us asking for
The
recommendation.
difference is when
versus-
I would like to get something and have all the information in front of me once. Recommendations, not recommendations, the list of all the people, so we deal with it at one meeting. And it's done.
I don't think it's that easy always, so I just don't.
Well, I guess only concern that I have is, I mean, if a person has a feeling that they may not be recommended by a committee, and I mean, this gets, to me, I think is following up on what Steve's point was. If I don't think that I'm gonna get a recommendation from that committee, am I even gonna go do it, go apply?
What are the basics that you want to know? You want to know that someone's understands the mission of the committee and the statutory responsibilities of that committee, that they're available to serve, whenever that committee meets, and they need to know the schedule. What other basic information do you need to know?
Well, I think that's where we've gotten ourselves into this position, because I think that's universal.
Mm-hmm.
But then every selectman around this table then may have a different assessment as to what they're looking for a particular commissioner or board member. So whether the other 4 people on this table agree with my rationale as a selectman, I'm entitled to I could pick someone based upon their hair color, if that's a criteria. It'd be kind of dumb, but I could do it. And I think that's that individual prerogative. So, and we've rehashed this thing 100 times. I mean, if I personally am looking for to change things up on a commission, because I think that is groupthink, okay? Well, then maybe I want to go in one direction, but maybe somebody else on the board is satisfied with what's going on. They're satisfied with status quo, well, then maybe they want to keep the same people on there. So I think it's all based upon an individual selectman's prerogative, and that's one of the few things that, as an individual selectman, you have power, or you have something. Other than that, we act as a board, So, I would want to preserve for myself or any selectman the opportunity to select someone for a committee or commission that they think is in the best interest of the town. Knowing that, of course, you want someone who's going to be reliable, show up, dedicated, but maybe, that person aligns more with your philosophy on a particular topic. And I don't see, where's the harm there? I mean, executives in government, whether they be governors or presidents or whatever, or even U.S. senators, or where you do confirmations, they tend to pick people that align with their political viewpoints.
Dave?
All that's good. I like it, but it's not translating into black and white language, so I think we've finished it.
I'm agreeing with you.
We've finished this discussion, really. Sue has enough information to present us a new draft.
Okay.
That's my recommendation.
Okay. We're gonna go forward the way it is? Okay, that's a consensus.
So, Mr. Chair, do we take up the nominations that are on the table?
No, I thought we were gonna do them next week.
Next week, thank you.
Okay.
Does it make a difference when you do it?
I think we should get it over with.
Oh, I thought we talked about doing it, didn't we just have a discussion and say we were doing it next week?
Okay.
And
What's the date?
may we have all the names
Yes.
early in the week? Not on Friday.
Hang on, when does conservation meet?
They're meeting
Will
on
we
the
be able to do it
29th.
before they meet?
Yes, you meet
Yes,
27th.
they're meeting later this month,
Okay, good.
and I verified that today.
So they're on
Because I was
Wednes-
just
they're
double
next-
checking the
they're
date.
next Wednesday, you're saying?
Right.
They're not meeting next Wednesday, they're meeting the 29th. They voted last month to move their meeting to the 29th this month.
Okay, they're meeting today's the 20th.
Yeah.
Next Monday's the 27th.
Yep.
Right, so we have time.
2 days from that is the
Oh, you're
29th,
right,
which is
I'm out of
Wednesday.
sequence,
I'm just, that's just.
Right.
but they're still meeting 1 week late, I'm right on that.
Okay.
When are they meeting?
The 29th.
Right, so if we do it next week, that's fine, then we'll have.
Are they not on the
There's
calendar?
always going to be one
Yeah.
committee
I
in a
was saying
cycle.
what's nicer
They're
than
on
you
my
feel.
website calendar.
Everything.
Oh, the website calendar.
Well, it's just they've been waiting to elect their officers for the
Oh,
appointments
that's
and
fine, yeah.
vacancies.
Oh, no, I'm on the Outlook, sorry.
No, I checked it today, verified it today,
All right.
because I did your meeting schedule. Guarantee it.
All boards recap?
Yes, it's just that on the yes.
All right. Nick?
Question, we have a memo from the Assistant
Eric?
Town Administrator. Does that belong under this, the all boards recap, or is that one of
Yes,
the committee reports?
Yes.
those were just a couple observations he made about one topic.
Right, that's what I was looking for. Okay, because 9A was listed for the other thing.
It's under 9C.
Towards-
It's
yeah,
actually
No.
after-
it's in
page
the
after
wrong
9C.
section.
Okay, I am looking then at. I apologize. Oh, what's throwing me off is 9A is next to that line, that's why, and there's no 9B.
It's actually 9C.
I know,
Okay.
but there's no,
There's no 9B, right?
right. 9C is listed for committee report.
Right. And after the first committee report, you'll find,
Correct.
so this
Okay.
should have been
Um,
9B.
As far as the recap, I had a little bit of feedback from that. And one of the things, as far as format and everything, that this was a different format than we did when we did the, when we had the one where we were doing the groups, when we facilitated. Right, the brainstorming session. That both of them were good, that the brainstorming was good, and that this, that maybe every other one should be, or every third one should possibly be a brainstorming, depending on how things progress over a period of time. But the basic point was that both formats seem to be productive. And the main thing is it breaks it up a little bit, because if it's always the same type, the type of meeting that it is, it just kind of like gets boring, as, oh, another one of those meetings. But if we change it, at least there's a different format on it, and it gives you, it gives you a little different type of an interaction. This was more of the roundtable session where that was the feedback that I got. So I don't know, did anybody else get any feedback? No, okay.
No.
So I'll just share that with the board, so next time, we'll see what the circumstances are, how the landscape is in front of us at that point in time, and determine whether or not the brainstorming session is something that's appropriate for the next one. If not, then we'll look at the roundtable session. So with that, any questions or any other comments on the? Derek's comment was concerned, I think Derek does have a little bit of merit. Do you think that might be a good idea to review that section of the master plan? That he referenced in there, because I do remember that, but I am not familiar, because what we were going basically by was the small update rather than the large, thick one. So it might be beneficial if we reviewed that.
Is that who is ultimately responsible for the master plan?
The planning board.
Okay.
It's their document, but
Right.
there were to-do, and
Right.
to-dos assigned to different
To
groups.
different groups, right.
Right.
And development of town-owned land would probably be a to-do for the board,
Yeah.
this board.
I mean, and the thing is one of the things that goes back with that section is that it is centrally located in the community. I mean, Goffstown does change a little bit. Whether or not the back road is ever gonna be as main a thoroughfare as Mast Road is, unless there's something done with that section by the Goffstown-Manchester line by the industrial park that has the no trucking through Manchester. Unless that changes with the interchange exit from 293 and changes that, I don't see the Mac Road becoming as much of a thoroughfare as Mast Road, although I could be wrong. Unless there's something else that goes in. I mean, I don't see a bypass coming to fruition that they talked about over the years, so you wouldn't have that connectability, from the back road over towards 114, the bypass. Because then the bypass went in, the actual plan was talking about for that bypass to continue on over and would hit on the back road, which never came to fruition, and I don't see that coming through from what's been studied, but
I would suggest that we put in an application with Plan New Hampshire, and they'll run a charrette, and for the little amount of maybe $5,000 in impact fees to match their cost and expenses, they could plan out that whole campus for you and get public input along the way, because sometimes master plans are outdated, and what may have been thought to be a good idea in 2006 may not be applicable today, but at least it will look at the whole history of the concept of things the public thought about for that, and is it conceivable to do that now? If it turns out that, you wanted a short-term, mid-term, and long-term plan for that, but before you started any kind of excavation, they could do a phased-in plan for you. And you get like $25,000 worth of engineering and design and layout for like $5,000 if you get that award.
any
That
idea what
was
that
you-
timeframe would be?
Usually they award in March of every year. You can apply anytime, but usually the awards come out then unless they have extra talent pool and they're not busy and they can do it sooner.
What are they laying out?
Well, first of all, they do a charrette. They take public input on how everyone envisions seeing this land used in the future. And then they lay out a plan for the use of the land, much like the county did. The county did a charrette regarding their land. And the process would be similar to that. So you get architects, engineers, a wide variety of professional people who would have input into the design and layout.
The county, yes, they had a consultant, a group of consultants who received all the public input and then put together
A plan.
5 or 6 categories of land, how that land was to be used.
Mm-hmm. We had one done by Plan New Hampshire of the mill building,
Right.
back when that was going to be developed.
I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
They had public input, I think they had it over in the basement of St. Lawrence
St.
Church,
Lawrence.
right?
Right.
Yeah,
Can I ask
So,
you a question?
You know,
It was a 2-day charrette.
right.
Yes, Steve?
Yeah, question, I mean, when just on the idea of, I understand planning, I think there's some merit and some, and but also I leave with some questions when you talk about the mill building, and we talk about the county charrette, I don't know what's ever come of them, from those plans.
Thank you.
I just don't know
They're
what's
a
ever
waste.
come of them.
A lot of them
I
are
don't know if I
waste.
wanna, I don't know if I wanna spend that time.
It's like a
It
2 to
develops a
3 year
vision.
delay. I think, but we did, we had,
The
we
mill is
developed the
still,
vision.
the mill is still an empty mill.
Right, but I'm saying, we talked about that land as a
That
Board of
had other
Selectmen, we talked about,
Obstacles.
but we talked about that land, first of all, the initial vision was to buy that land for recreational purposes. Then we talked about it for sand and gravel as a means of trying to pay for it and convince the voters to do that. That was one. Secondly, we talked to all of the department heads as to what their needs would be. We talked to the police, we talked to fire. Now granted, I understand the whole village node thing, I've seen that. I don't personally envision that. I haven't heard too many people who do envision it. Is there, the charge to the Parks and Rec Commission was to set aside some of that property for future municipal use, whether it be a building, a school, or something, just in case. So, just like Cemetery Field is a practice field, something, and now a cemetery is gonna be built on it, the same thing would apply there. You might have a few fields that may have a structure built on them in the future. So I think it satisfies that long-term solution, but, you know, quite honestly, like, I'm tired of studying things to death. I really am, and I think it's time to take some action. You know, and that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not for developing a strip mall on that property. I'm not for a village node there. I'm not. I'm for excavating it, building a recreational complex, and moving on.
Just another comment. We still have land up on Daniel Plummer we haven't touched. We have the land that abuts St. A's. I mean,
The town?
no, not the town.
Oh.
No.
Individual landowners.
Oh, individual, yes.
Developable land, I mean, and so.
And those developments hinge on getting a curb cut.
And I
with the state.
understand that, so, but I'm just saying,
If you look at, I've looked at that village node thing, I mean, it talks about taking some of our current things here and I just don't, I mean, maybe I'm not as visionary as I should be, but I don't picture us spending $50 to $100 million moving buildings, all, you know, and then reconfiguring what, I don't see that happening, nor do I see creating a little mini village there. I don't. The traffic on that road, I just don't see it.
You're correct in that the access routes are very difficult and would take additional purchases and infrastructure money to build roads and bridges. You know, it's not there.
Nick, you had a comment?
Well, the only comment I have, excuse me, is this is town land. It's not Nick Campusano's land or Selectman Fournier's land or, and the master plan was developed through a process of public input, public comment. You know, there was a process there. So I personally don't feel comfortable with saying, geez, you know, I think we should have X, Y, or Z on that land. I know we presented it for the long, short-term gravel and sand needs. We looked to meet some of our Parks and recreational needs in the short and medium term, but I don't think those things were hard and fast as far as this is what's gonna be there forever. I feel more comfortable in saying we need some planning process that includes public input, that says ultimately, are we gonna follow the master plan? If not, we need to change the master plan, but I don't feel I have the expertise or, you know, my individual vision is what should be the town use of that town land. And that's my opinion.
I think that perhaps one thing that we could do is review the minutes from the town meeting when that article was presented. See what the discussion was, how we presented the article, what we stated.
I think we did state
We
exactly
stated
what.
that, exactly
Selectman
that we
Gross
were
said.
gonna use it for sand and
Gravel?
gravel in the short term, and it was to be for recreational purposes as we reclaim it.
Or possible municipal use.
And,
Yeah,
and,
or
and set
possible
aside,
use,
right,
yeah.
for future, we didn't talk about village nodes, we didn't talk about any of that stuff.
fact,
So
I
as
don't
far
think
as I'm concerned, I mean, you know, one of the things, I'll be very candid, you know, one of my goals, you know, for my remaining year as a year and a half, whatever, is to get a plan in place. One of the things is we overstudy things, we don't accomplish things, and we just keep on putting it off and putting it off. And, you know, I worked fairly hard on trying to, you know, convince the community about long-term needs for, you know, for that piece of property. It was a great buy at the time, I think we all know that. It has a tremendous amount of potential, and for us to study this thing to death, then fine, I guess somebody else can go and sit on it for another 20 years. But, I mean, I'm willing to invest the time, and the Parks and Recreation Commission is willing to do it. They're gonna, once they get their stakeholders together, then that committee is gonna get bigger. It's gonna include people from conservation and others, and planning, et cetera. But I just think we're just studying things like way, way, way too much. I mean, we studied a central fire station for 2 years. It's on the shelf. May never happen. You know, I think you just have to, you know, move forward. And this is gonna be one of these private-public partnerships. So as we, you know, that's what they're talking about. As we excavate the property, is there a community athletic group that is now willing to put in their sweat equity, their money, into turning it into a use that the community can have without a whole lot of taxpayer money and being put into it? That's a win-win. And if we're gonna go now in another direction, now you just said to these people that have been working now for the last 6 months, including Parks and Rec and all these groups that have met, oh, you know what, we're gonna shelve it.
Well, I'm not sure we're saying that, and it probably
think we
will end
are.
up being
I think
recreational.
we are, and I think we are, and I think it's, just because, whatever, I'm just frustrated by it.
I believe we are, I don't necessarily agree with Mr. Horn's analysis here. I believe we have developed short-range, medium, long-range plans, and that is simply, first of all, there has to be excavation of soil to reestablish a grade at the old Perry parcel. And then the long range is, this board seems to be agreed that is going to be recreational in its basic nature. And at that point, we've turned it over to the Park Commission to present what the public would want. But I'll come back to that excavation point. In order to restore the former Perry parcel to some level of elevation, you may have to take the entire Bernard parcel and lower it 3 to 4 feet in elevation. You know, so I need you to understand that. There's considerable excavation needs to be done to bring up the Perry parcel to some level of a flat area. And so all of that park department, park development has to take that into consideration.
And who is
And
doing that?
And if you're not gonna level the entire Barnard property, well, you're gonna be lowering some other portion more.
Are we under a time commitment?
No?
Okay.
But there's a vast amount of soil to restore the former Perry parcel to some degree of flatness.
Doesn't have to be-
Above the water table.
Right, above the water table.
And if if you're potentially putting buildings in there, higher above the water table. But that's a tremendous amount of work, and if it's DPW employees, on spare project, time fill, it's, the amount of volume is more than our bulldozers and excavators and trucks can handle. You're potentially talking about a scraper working for a considerable portion of the time to move vast quantities of soil from one A
So what you're
location
saying
A
is
to
that's
B.
beyond our capabilities?
No, it may have to be contracted out just to move a vast amount of soil. I just wanted you to understand that, because earlier, they attempted to, Public Works attempted to move a small amount of loam off of, well, it turned out off the Perry property, but the board got concerned about that and said, don't do any excavation at all.
'Cause we
Well, I think
thought-
they thought it was the Barnard property.
Right, we thought it was the Barnard property.
But I just bring it to your attention is, a lot of cubic yards will have to be moved from point A to point B to make the Perry restored to some degree of flatness at higher than the water table.
I understand that, but then also the point is that we have under no timetable, and that necessarily fill doesn't have to all come from the Barnard or the Perry property.
Haul is expensive.
Well, people bring material down to the transfer station all the time, Scott.
I think we sold it to the community that we would remove sand and gravel and use it for our needs, and that was the short to medium term use. And the medium to long term use was recreational fields. We knew that this is gonna take 5 or 15-year project. It might, somewhere in between there. And that these fields or their use would be developed slowly. So as you excavated, hopefully you'd be able to reclaim, and there would be a group that would go in and reclaim. And that's really what the plan is that, I shouldn't say plan, the vision is that there will be individual groups that will step up to reclaim the areas for athletic fields with volunteer money, volunteer labor. Will there be some town resources? I'm sure there will be, but largely done with community efforts. And we've seen that in back of the high school, Field of Dreams, that was done by volunteers. Lions Field, a lot of that was done by volunteers. We have Allard Park, individual land. So I think that this community has a history of stepping up and doing these types of things. And there are many, many people who do own excavation companies, landscape companies that move earth all the time, and who will help. John Brown Track. There's a whole slew of that that the community has a history with. So I don't think this is going to happen in 1 year. I don't think it's going to happen in 5 years. I think it's going to happen over a much longer period of time. But I think if the plan gets sidetracked or the vision gets sidetracked, it's going to be doomed. We will have a pit with nothing. And I think right now, I have attended some of the meetings at Parks and Recreation. It's a nice energy. They've met with 8 or 9 different community groups, and I think all but maybe one of them is very excited about this. They're excited about fundraising. They're excited about marshaling resources to get it done. They recognize that they may have years before they even break ground on any component of that, but that gives them time to raise money and things of that nature. So, I think this is like a curveball, and I want to see the curveball get put back into some other place, because there is a good vision for this, and this is just a distraction. It's mine.
He just wanted to bring it to your attention that there were other uses identified in the master
Right.
plan before you went too far down the road.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So where are we going?
To sleep, hopefully, soon.
Committee reports, maybe.
Old business.
Old business, okay.
We had the issue that was brought up from members of the public, that we said that we might bring it up on the old business.
With Public Works.
Oh, East Dunbarton Road?
Right.
You wanted the department head to respond to that?
By email.
No, I thought that we were gonna discuss this.
I understood that we'd receive a plan from the department head, Public Works, as to how definite it, in his
What are the odds of getting that road done?
having work done with, contingency of funds availability at the end of the year.
Keeping in mind, we don't know what the downshifting from the state's gonna be either, and whether we'll need some of that contingency.
Well, what I took away from his comment was, why are we doing Spring Street instead of East Dunbarton Road, why isn't it Spring Street that's waiting to see if there's enough funding?
He was talking about prioritizing, how it was
Right.
prioritized.
Right.
Right.
That he seemed to think that it was
So,
turned around.
Well,
so
we-
the idea of squeezing funding right now, what is the priority, then the funding would follow to those priorities.
Right, but my understanding is the water precinct is replacing the
They are.
water main, and we're piggybacking to not open the road twice, to do it all in
Yes.
one shot.
There's a public information meeting scheduled for this week to present the town engineer to present the plans on Spring Street. There's a lot in motion and time expended and cost expended to move to this point now.
Just a question, is it a case where we were reclaiming the road, so they talked about the water main, or was the water main coming first? It was that way, I'm just curious how it worked.
Because they were going to attempt to do it last year, but Water wanted in on it and didn't budget for it, so they budgeted for it this year.
There's always going to be,
So the road was the driver last year.
Mhm.
The road was the driver, not the water main, correct?
Right. That's the way I understood it.
well, there's always going to be second guessing on the priorities that we've established for the road plan as we get moving into an actual project. But at this point in the year, we have a pretty firm schedule of what we want to accomplish this summer. So my recommendation is we stay with it, but we get, information.
Do we have any, okay, that meeting is this Wednesday? With what, neighbors or something?
Yes,
Right. Are there like any outstanding?
a public information about Lesnick on Wednesday, Spring
And then
Street on
Addison.
Wednesday, and Addison
Right.
on Thursday. I'll be there at all three meetings.
And there's no issues that we're aware of on any of those? It's just public
It's
information?
public presentation by the town engineer on the extent of the work being done on those streets. Just,
Nick, yeah.
I was hoping to have a discussion with Public Works to look at some solution short of reclamation for East Dunbarton Road. In other words, we know we want to reclaim that, it's out in the distant future, or whenever it is in the future, but what can we do now to alleviate those trouble spots? Very similar to what they did in Tibbetts.
Right, and that's where, that worked out pretty well. I mean.
There are culverts that, at certain parts of the year, it's a cavern, you know,
Oh,
you
yeah.
travel that road. And if we can address those sinkholes, the culverts, those trouble spots, level it out so at least people can sleep through the night when a trailer goes by or a vehicle goes by, that could extend us at least until when we do reclaim the road.
and I concur with that. I think Sue can put that in the guidance that she'll provide to the department head tomorrow to receive feedback. There are projects that are
Right.
within Public Works capability short of reclaiming.
I
And
think it's gonna beg the question, though, even for next year, road program. We may have to think about a heck of a lot more of these types of solutions to stretch things and to buy us more time, rather than saying, okay, we're only gonna reclaim this road. We may have to say, you know what, we're not reclaiming any road, but we are gonna do spot reclaims and shim and overlays on more roads, and we know that we may be putting, maybe not spending our money as wisely as we'd like, but maybe we don't have any other options. Because I think at least you can make a lot more roads drivable even for 5 or 7 years, as opposed to making just a handful of roads good, like really good, for the next 15. I don't know. It's tough. I mean, I'm not in that business, but it just seems, what happened on Tibbetts, what happened on, what's the other road that we did last, Moset?
Right.
Those were, not what we customarily would do, but it's getting us by in this economy.
What is the ticket on Spring Street, the price? Do we know?
No.
Probably in the road matrix somewhere.
You know, it's interesting, because when I was at my conference last week, the last speaker was speaking on performance measurements, and he used Goffstown as an example of a town that he copies. And he specifically named the Public Works Department and the road plan and the recycling and trash pickup and the metrics they use and all of that. And
Yes.
And this town
The
was,
roads that are on the road plan are there by a metric.
Mhm.
Yes.
And he had nothing but praise and how it worked into the whole Baldridge approach on performance measurements.
So any one individual could come in any evening and tell us that Road A is in particularly bad shape. We already know that, but there are roads B, C, and D that also in bad shape, and
Maybe in worse shape.
Yeah.
and by the metrics of our understanding that worse shape, they get done first.
I think what this gentleman was trying to say, though, and it had
There
some
are
merit.
short
It had some
workarounds.
merit that you're looking at the cost of doing a road for a limited amount of travel, a limited amount of people versus one that's highly traveled. And and I do agree with the road program, I understand what you're saying, but the rather reality is that every year, where that road program should have been growing in how much we would have for expenditures, it's been contracting. And
That's the reality.
and now we're starting to change, looking for creative ways to get by. And also, you know, so all of a sudden let's say you take a side street, and I'm gonna get away from Spring Street, I'll just say it, any other, let's say you take any street where it's just, be it a dead end and there's a short amount, you know, small amount of homes on it, you have to look at it and say, well, what about the road that's traveled by, you know, thousands of people? You have to look at, I think we have, you know, there's that part you have to look at. I think there's some choices in there. And I expect our road program will be smaller this year than it was, next year than it is this year.
I won't go there.
I'm not saying dollar
It could
amount.
be.
I
You
hope
can,
not.
but-
Wait a minute, I'm not saying dollar amount, I'm saying,
What, bang for the buck amount?
yeah, the cost of everything has gone up. Even if we fund it at the same amount, we're gonna have less.
Across the board,
Yeah, that's,
depends on how much
and that's
asphalt
if
we
you
get.
don't touch the dollar figure, it's going to be less, considerably less.
So, let
No,
me,
just
let
put
me
it out
ask
there.
this, so what I'm hearing is that Spring Street,
It's at the point of no return is what I'm hearing, because the sewer, the water, I should
Water.
say, is being, that's all scheduled.
They
done.
have committed their budget for this year to put water in. And it's a joint project to reclaim the road. Plus sidewalks, plus storm drainage. It's just not the surface of the road. Storm drainage, curbing, sidewalks, and reclaiming, and water. So there's a lot of engineering has already been
Yeah.
moving forward to make that happen.
I understand that. I'm saying there's been changes in other pieces too. I'm not saying this is the one to do.
So you want to waste all of that effort and put it on hold?
I did not
No.
say that. Maybe, maybe not. I did not say that yet at this point. All I'm saying is that I think that the gentleman had merit, and I don't think anyone can say
We,
no to that.
we all agree that East Dunbarton needs help.
And what he was looking for, and I'm not saying we jump and do this, but what he was saying is that, can you take a look at that and look at the cost factor of it and the usage, and does this make good sense? And things are changing on the ground for us, changing on the ground drastically. When we look at the price of what gas and oil and what we can purchase, and I don't think that next year is gonna be a year where we increase the budget for the road program, so automatically we will have less.
Well, I guess we'll know more Wednesday, right? If there's any problems or snafus on all these projects. It's not just that one, we've got three of them. Are there any other ones there that are?
Lesnick Springs.
Lesnick and Addison is.
And
Yeah,
it's
Addison
my
Addison
understanding.
is like an East Dunbarton
Yes,
road.
it's my understanding that Public
Lesnick is-
Works wants to put Spring Street and Addison under the same contract.
so what I'm hearing is that there is no way that Spring Street can be put off.
That
That
would-
section of the road that the gentleman was here was talking about, switch the priorities.
I would, yeah, correct. do not put off Spring Street because of the 11th hour recommendation that we've heard tonight. But seek short-term solutions what can be, if we can't reclaim it, if we don't have sufficient contingency funds to fully reclaim what was intended to do on East Dunbarton, what can be done in spot improvements? And receive those recommendations next week for us to hear about.
I have a question. When we started the year, didn't we have a plan to pave 8 feet of,
Gravel.
no,
Right,
originally,
right.
weren't we paving?
Yes, $80,000.
It's like $80,000 worth of pavement
Right.
on the shoulder of
That went
Mass
away
Road.
because we didn't-
And then we found out that we couldn't do it because of the right-of-ways, and then we were gonna put a bike path, and we ended up with a 3-foot shoulder. Where's that 80,000?
We didn't get an 8-foot shoulder, a 3-foot shoulder.
Oh, 3-foot, or
But
whatever.
The point
Mr.
is.
The point is, wasn't there
point is-
money set aside for that that has no longer been used?
I guess, and the question with that also, we go back to Mr. Pierce, and that 2 weeks ago, we asked to go back and find out what was the status with that, because what was accomplished wasn't what the board had voted on also, but part of that could be, well, maybe that's one of these things also that we look at what's on the table.
Yeah, the feedback, I spoke to someone over at DPW, and the feedback that I got was that there wasn't a whole lot of clarity as to what the board wished for this Mast Road situation. And I'm just gonna clarify what I thought it was, and if you guys concur, that's fine, but we talked about how there were too many issues with paving it, and we had a couple of issues where somebody had put a fence and some other things. It was under my impression that, well, fine, move the fence, but we were gonna put in a shoulder that was wide enough for almost the width of a sidewalk. This individual told me that the shouldering machine is not capable of doing that. It simply spits out a shoulder that is, I think, 18 or 24 inches. It's not designed to spit out, a 5-foot section as a sidewalk would. And now, where there was some confusion, in my opinion, was the issue of fences in the way and other things. 'Cause it was my impression that if someone put a fence up in the right-of-way, that we were telling them to remove the fence. It's our right-of-way.
And that was one of the.
That was what my impression was.
Oh, well, it wasn't actually an impression, it was actually, I believe there was, if my recollection is correct, it was actually, you had made that amendment to that vote saying, let's, if we're gonna do the dirt, let's at least also
Address those other
address
issues.
that
That's what I
distance
thought.
issue on the fence, and that was one of the, that was a specific addressment at the time of the vote.
'Cause it's not, I've driven down the road, and again, I don't wanna disrespect anybody at DPW, I don't. Maybe there was miscommunication or a misunderstanding, but I had envisioned a 3, 4, 5-foot type gravel shoulder where the pavement ends, not from the fog line, but from where the pavement ends, where people could walk, acting much like a sidewalk would, but it's not paved. That's what I thought. And then I'm hearing, well, it's not possible to do it in certain sections. You're gonna have this issue, that issue, and that's kind of where I went. I mean, I backed off the whole bike lane thing, with the pavement one, but I thought that was a healthy compromise, and I think that there was some miscommunication there.
Nick? The other thing, from my memory, we were going from Danis Park, past Lynchville, to the existing sidewalk.
Correct.
And the obstructions in our right-of-way appear to be at the Danis Park end.
Right.
In fact, almost the
Most of them,
last
yeah.
couple of properties.
Mm-hmm.
So again, not wanting to complicate this, why not start that 8-foot shoulder wherever we have a clear right-of-way and continue it all the way down to the sidewalk, and then just give us the
Whatever you can
shoulder
give us.
for the last 3 properties? I mean, why does the whole project stop because we have 2 properties that we have a right-of-way issue with? Most of the people are gonna be coming from Lynchville Park, from those areas, so, is it, an individual only walks 3 properties on that shoulder versus the entire length all the way to the sidewalk? So This is, sometimes I think a roadblock that really shouldn't be a major roadblock just derails the whole project.
And I think that's kind of speaks what the gentleman spoke about a little bit. We look at some of these things, we talk about them, then there's these little hiccups within the road, bumps along the road. But yet, we're gonna go and do a project on a small street, and we'll spend more on that sidewalk for a handful of people to walk versus a major throughway where you see people riding and walking every day. It doesn't make some sense to me. It doesn't to me at all.
Well, I support the comments Selectman Campusano just made, and maybe this, that should be sufficient to have DPW either do that or tell us exactly what can and can't be done.
Why don't we throw dirt down on every sidewalk, on any side street we do?
No, let's not widen the problem right now.
No, I'm telling, there were difficulties there regarding trees, there's difficulty regarding property lines there, if I remember correctly.
On what?
In spring, there were
Yeah,
trees.
there's 2 trees,
All these
there's
things,
property.
but, no, but saying, but.
No
we didn't-
longer.
Yeah,
But we
they're
didn't
not- they're
say,
gone.
but we never said, hey, by the way, we'll do, we'll just make the road a little wider and make it more like just a walking path. And, no, that wasn't the compromise. Then we said, no, we said, we'll do all the things we need to do to have a sidewalk there. And I'm just saying, we pick certain projects and we decide that we'll go all the way. And I'm just saying, sometimes I look at these and they don't compare. And it doesn't make, it doesn't pass the smell test. Why that one and not the other? And that's what the gentleman was speaking about a little bit. And I think sometimes as a board, we have to look at that and say, what is serving the greater good and what is not? And where do these dollars go?
Well, let me ask this then, should we have Public Works in next week and specifically to address those 2 issues?
We could.
I mean, we have to get our arms around this whole thing with this. Because for one, I think there is some miscommunication and some, it may be even perhaps hard feelings, where I think we need to clear the air as to what the intentions are of that Mast Road, shoulder/bike lane. I mean, that has to get cleared up, and what's possible, what's not possible. I mean, if Nick's comment is accurate, and we can do 90% of this, or 80% of it, then maybe that's an option. Maybe it's, you know what, we're gonna be satisfied with a paved stretch.
You're walking the street half the distance. versus
Correct.
the whole
I mean,
distance.
maybe that's the way to go, and then we'll have to deal with the other 3 properties. I mean, that's a good idea.
But if I may, just to go back,
Go ahead.
Public Works did not identify right, wrong, or indifferent East Dunbarton Road. For whatever reason, it was not identified to be done this year. That's
It is
not.
identified if there's
No.
funding.
No, what I'm saying is.
This year.
When we were originally, this year, when we were originally given the plan, the Public Works project list, it wasn't on that list, for whatever reason. The water precinct, for whatever reason, made plans to do, and they've engineered it, it's their budget, that's their project, they may even have started, I don't, as far as the planning. The engineering for Spring Street is done. The gentleman came in last week, or the week before, actually, to tell us that I think we need to work with Public Works to see how we can work that project in, but I don't think we look at the other 3 projects that are now on the eve of getting done, have been engineered. We don't know if they've been contracted out. I don't know how that,
No,
that has not
they
been
haven't.
contracted out. Right. I'm just saying, I think we can work and identify them and probably find all of the fit everything in this summer.
Well, the only thing I'll say is that in the very beginning, East Dunbarton Road was identified if there's funding. What you're talking about is correct within a funding level, but East Dunbarton Road.
It was a contingency road.
Right.
But I don't know at what point it was a contingency road.
It's
What-
the next
The original
road
plan?
if
No.
there's funding.
I understand, but I don't know if that appeared after you decided just to shoulder Mass Road, and that's where the funding went, and that's when it
No,
became a
this was in the very
contingency, or
begin-
was it in the original?
No, this was in the very beginning, when we had this, before this issue with the shouldering of Mast Road came up. It was a funding, it's always been a funding issue. It all depended, we even talked about depending on what the price of asphalt, when we got the asphalt bids, that was gonna affect it.
I don't remember meeting that was discussed. We looked at the projects.
Well, we can do that homework after the meeting. I mean, I don't think we're gonna accomplish it tonight, personally.
Public Works will be in next week to discuss these? Okay. Any other old business? Committee reports, library.
Library did meet last Wednesday, and three issues came across. And the first one was the library trustees voted to raise the annual non-resident card fee to $100 per year. This puts them in line with the actual cost of that's what, per person.
What kind of card they could use?
If I'm a non-resident,
Okay.
prior to this, they were paying $35, and the actual cost for us to do business with that is actually $100. So they're going to raise that fee up there. And all these votes that they took are all gonna take effect July 1st, is my understanding. Second part about that is that the state, out-of-state libraries will now pay patrons requesting materials from out-of-state will now pay $5, which is gonna cover the cost of the mailing and the handling of it. So if you were to order a book and they had to get it from a library that they're connected with from out-of-state and it comes in, you'll pay $5 fee. Next thing, change of card in hand requirement. You will no longer need your library card if you're a resident at the library. Actually, let me rephrase that. They want you to have your card. But if for some reason you forgot it, they can look up on the system and make, as long as you have an ID. So honestly, if you're an adult and you forgot your library card, and honestly, it does slow down the process, so they do recommend that you have your card. But they won't send you home without
Is
your
that
book.
like an eye scan?
No, just
an ID, not an eye scan?
Just a thumbprint,
They don't scan your eye?
Yeah, so part of that would be, but if you were a child, obviously, or you wouldn't have an ID, that process wouldn't be able to take place. And the last piece they talked about was the Board of Trustees approved that trustees as volunteers or employees of the Goffstown Public Library policy. And what they really want to make sure is they differentiate between volunteers and what they do and what library staff do. So essentially, if there's a job that a library staff normally does, but because there's been reductions in hours that they would use, you can't have a volunteer come in and do that same job after. Okay. So Scott, you'll be able to get your book next time you forget your library card.
As long as he's a resident, right?
As long as he's a resident and has a photo ID to prove who he is.
Okay. Any questions of Steve? If not, Parks and Rec.
I didn't go to the last meeting,
You didn't, huh?
but the polls are done.
Oh, good.
But
But they did have a meeting, right?
How
what?
do they look?
They had a
They
meeting.
did have a
Oh,
meeting.
okay.
How do they look?
What?
How do they
I haven't
look?
seen them yet.
I haven't either.
And they did, over the last 2 weeks, they have been speaking with all of those community groups. That was the week before that I went, and I met with those folks. So they're basically trying to capture the interest level of these different community groups and get what their needs are for field space, et cetera. And I can say that I think all but one of them was, extremely gung-ho and willing to, this is the Barnard land that I'm talking about. The Goffstown Gallop is coming up this Saturday. Selectmen, you're running, I think Selectman Forney is running in it? You've been training, right?
First of all, I'm horror cold, and the word running could be an over-exaggeration, but I am thinking of participating,
Okay.
yes.
So that's Saturday, so I'd encourage all residents to partake in that. It's a good time. And Selectmen, if you'd like to assist and volunteer, it is in the morning, and just let Rick know, and usually it's all hands on deck anyway, so. And the other thing is that the Parks and Rec Commission is going to be one of the, the prime volunteer groups for the Roy Park Ice Cream Social. That's part of the 250th celebration. So Rick Wilhelmy and the commissioners and the staff are helping out with that. It's going to be at Roy Park, and they're working on that. So that was it.
That's it? Any questions of Scott? CIP?
CIP met, and we had a presentation from the library trustees, and the school district. and we'll be meeting again this Thursday, next Thursday.
Any questions of Nick? 250th.
Last Friday, we had our 250th anniversary cake. I thought the event went pretty well. Obviously, we're all wearing our costumes, and there's only 3 of us who had the common sense enough to take the wigs off. No, only kidding. For some, maybe it's an improvement. I don't know. But anyway, it's a great time.
Taking the wig off, right.
Yeah. It's a good time. Weather held out. Certainly want to not thank anybody specifically, but thank all the volunteers who helped, because there was a lot of them, so I don't want to try to list names and then forget somebody and insult them. So our next event is going to be this coming Saturday is the Gala Ball. We have over 310 people attending. Unfortunately, there are no more tickets that are being sold, so if you didn't get them, I apologize for that. The last Wednesday was the deadline for that.
I understand there's a scalper that's selling some tickets.
That's possible. They're $500 each ticket then. You can call me. And we're working on other events as we speak. You know, obviously, the Roy Park Ice Cream Social on the 23rd of July, the Block Party, which is our biggest event, on August 27th. That's when we're going to have the fireworks. And then we're having a parade, which is going to be on the back end of the Pumpkin Regatta Day. And so those are the remaining events after the Gala Ball. So anybody who still would like to volunteer to help out, give us a call.
Okay, you have a question?
No, just want to thank you. I think there was a Union Leader article Thursday of last week, and it listed the supporters of the 250th anniversary activities. I appreciate you putting that in the paper.
Okay. Any other questions of Scott? Any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
We need to make a motion, a recommendation by the police chief.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what that motion was, though.
Accept his recommendation.
Accept his recommendation for retirement.
Retirement, right. I'll make that. I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Nick. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous.
Motion
Any
to
other?
motion to accept the police chief's recommendation to fill the position and all the resulting vacancies.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 It's unanimous. Any other?
I mean, we discussed,
Can I say, we gotta go back to.
accept the police chief's was it retirement? It was an individual
Right.
within the police department.
Correct.
Yes,
Not the police chief
not
himself.
the
It's
police chief.
individual.
His recommendation for
Recommendation.
retirement.
For an individual.
Steve, you all set?
Yeah, well, said I'll clarify later.
Okay. Any other, do we have any other business?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.